Hello and welcome back to another MILSURP HQ podcast.
Mouser screams, mouse and roars, Cockado whistle through the wars. Springfield thunder echo loud, collect the same history, we stand proud. Rifles bleed past battles alive, HQ does too when the legends thrive. In our vault, tales engraved, when pursuing these are honor saved. Raise the arms, salute the past, collect the same history forever will last. Feel that blood, tales engraved, when pursuing these are honor saved. Raise the arms, salute the past, collect the same history forever will last. Feel that blood.
Hello and welcome back to another MILSURP HQ podcast. It is 2025 and we are finally back, and I think we could reveal it now. We had some secret important jobs we were doing the last month or so. That's why we weren't putting out shows. I was the guy that lowered the ball down in Times Square this past New Year's. And I was also the guy who paid off the refs so the Chiefs can get back to the Super Bowl. You're welcome, fellas. But I was pretty busy, but Kelly was also busy. He's here. He's back from his job. He was blinding all the groundhogs in America so we don't get 6 more weeks of winter this week. What's
Yeah,
up,
right.
Kelly?
How's it going, Tom? It's good to be back.
Oh, yeah. We're very important people. So today's topic will be MILSURP collecting goals and our MILSURP quests for the upcoming year, including some talk about some collection lists we used when we started collecting and what constitutes a proper World War II collecting group today. Like, for instance, like when is a World War II infantry rifles goal done? When you have one example from each model? Or is it when you have an example of every single model from every single manufacturer used by every single country involved? So I guess we're asking if we have collector OCD, like those
When
pattern
can I be
collectors.
done? When can I call it done? The answer is never, but
Never. Spoiler, never. So we'll try to make some sense of it all, and I'll try to do a good job documenting the lists we discussed so we can post them on the website. Maybe we can make some checklists for people. And speaking of lists, spoiler, a few MILSURP from my short Grail gun list have been purchased by one of our guests today. So, Kelly, who is here to make me feel sad about my collection?
So today we have a couple of our guests. They have some pretty nice collections. We have, well, they're both named Michael, but we have Holmes and Michael today. And thank you all for joining.
Thanks for having.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on.
And we always like to ask our guests a couple of questions right as they come in. So first kind of question for each of you is, what kind of collector are you? Are you a kind of eras collector, a period collector, a manufacturer collector, a certain rifle collector? And what is the next thing on your list? And I think we're also going to do our most recent pickups this time around.
Yep.
So Holmes, why don't you start us off?
Alrighty. So I think I'm more of a World War I, World War II collector. I think that's what I've been doing for the longest time. But I've dabbled a little bit for pre-World War I into the black powder area a little bit. But mainly I try and stick to World War I, World War II. Nothing past 1945, really. That's where I lose a lot of interest. But I think, and some of my recent stuff I got were actually two black powder guns. It was a Mauser 71 and a Chassepot, a French Chassepot. So the Mauser 71 actually came from our guest here, Michael. He saw it in a gun shop. He tipped me off a little bit about it, and I called the shop, and they were able to ship it to me. And I got it within like 2 or 3 days, not even, actually probably 2 days. And the Chassepot was from a friend who got his as an extra rifle in one of the recent Rock Island auction lots. And he didn't have a desire to keep that one, so he gave me a good deal on the Chassepot. So both are 100% matching, very nice condition.
See, it pays to have friends.
Definitely does. So I think they're actually my two oldest rifles I have in the collection right now. The Chassepot is September 1873, and the Mauser 71 I think is 1878 off the top of my head.
Very nice. Yeah, I saw that Mauser 71. That's a gorgeous example you got.
Yeah, and just like the classic German style, every single thing is serialized down to the smallest screws and things that you don't even think about that are important at all. So I was happy to see all that.
Yep.
And same with the Chaspo. I mean, still has the plug in the stock, and the even the cleaning rod or clearing rod is serialized to the gun too still. So
Very
just
nice.
yeah, just happy to have those two. So again, kind of branching out a little bit out of my normal comfort zone, getting into the black powder stuff. So I'm definitely asking a lot of questions for the people and the groups in the Discord and everything to make sure I'm not screwing myself over or getting a good deal or anything like that. So definitely a lot more questions coming from me than usual.
Very nice.
And do you think you're gonna now focus on more black powder rifles?
I wouldn't necessarily say focus more. I would say kind of what I've been doing my whole time collecting, of getting like one good example of each country, of each time period. So I'll probably get some more black powder stuff. I do have a trapdoor for the U.S. collection. I do have a Berdan too, as well,
Oh, I forgot.
for
Yeah.
the Russian side. Um, so I think maybe I'll look into possibly going into the development stuff for the French and the German stuff as well. So like the Gras for France, and then going through the whole German part of it
Oh,
too.
and RTI has some 1888s if you're interested.
Oh, nope, nope. Don't say those words.
Okay.
So there's a couple tips for some of our newer collectors: is network, keep a lookout for things that you're interested in, and also that your buddies are interested in. So yeah, make friends, and they can have more eyes and more places for you. Yeah, and also
Definitely.
reach out
Definitely.
to the experts when you don't know something.
Yeah, we share the love a lot when it comes to that stuff, and we definitely know who to talk to or reach out. And luckily, everybody's very, very welcoming and more than happy to share their expertise and willing to help out all of us.
Oh yeah.
My stores suck, but I check every time, and I think about the joy it would be if there was something there that one of you guys needed, and I could tell you it's here, get it. But they never have anything. Oh well.
Yeah, I think paying things forward is great. This past summer, Holmes got me like a killer good deal on a Type 99 Japanese sniper, and it's just you make friends along the way, and then you wanna treat your friends good. And if you're not interested in buying something, but you see it and you're like, hey, I wonder if that person's interested, you pass it along, and then everybody gets ahead.
Yep. They could join the MILSURP World Discord, not MILSURP HQ Discord, the MILSURP World Discord. Look into that, and you can get some friends.
Pay to join some friends.
All my online friends.
We'll do the pickups after we do Michael's story.
Yeah. So I'll jump in. I'm a little bit more narrowly focused. So I'm primarily a Japanese collector. The era, right, pretty much ends at World War II, but I also like their earlier stuff as well, up to the Muratas and even the Meiji era. Like the Western imports. Haven't managed to snag one of those yet, but it's on the list, and I'll get one someday. Um, so that's my primary collection, and then
Even though
I've
it's
got a
one country, even though it's one country, there's so many parts, the flags, there's so many different Japanese things, like the
and
artwork
I think
and oh, how about the swords and all the styles of swords and oh,
yeah, exactly. That was the first thing that got me collecting military type objects was Japanese swords. So I picked up several Japanese swords before I bought my first gun, um, and it just bled into itself. I lived over in Japan for a couple years, and just really have always
cool.
enjoyed the history. So that's been great. So that one's my main collection. And also, right, like, and this is true for any country, the further down the rabbit hole you get, the more you realize just how extensive the whole thing is. So, right, like I've got my Japanese produced guns, but then I also have guns that were built elsewhere, produced elsewhere, and then used by the Japanese. So, like I have an FN 1910 that's kanji marked to be used by the Japanese. I have a VZ-24 Czech-built rifle that the Japanese Navy imported because they were having difficulty collecting arms because the Japanese Army was running the arsenals and wasn't sharing. And some other stuff too. I've got a Dutch gun that's been modified to carry a Japanese bayonet. So like the further down the rabbit hole you get,
Yeah, yeah, you get to get a taste of all those guns, Mausers and whatnot.
yeah, exactly. It's pretty fun. So that's my main collection, and then I also have two kind of I call them like polyps. collections. Like I've got two small side collections that like keep me looking even if there's not something Japanese at a show or a store. So I've got a small Finnish collection I've been working on. I really just like the history of Finland as a democracy standing up to the Soviet Union. And just like the complicated and messy nature of the history, right? Like aligning as a co-belligerent with Nazi Germany because their country got invaded by the Soviets, and it's just messy and it's interesting.
Right. Talk about
So
man
I've
in the
got
middle.
right, exactly, yeah. So I've got a few finished guns, and then I also have like a really small collection from when I first started out of Italian front World War One. So I've got a couple interesting Carcanos, and then one super rough RTI 8895 Liquor. And that one's probably the one I buy the least. It's probably been 2 years since I bought anything for that part of my collection. And I really enjoy the history, but I've been tempted to sell parts of it to fund things like Japanese that I like. That's the stuff that I care about the most.
You have a prize of your collection, and is it not a gun?
Ooh, like my favorite piece.
Yeah, your favorite Japanese piece.
Yeah, oof. If it's down to like one object, that's a little tough. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna go with two. I have one sword and one gun. And they're both Navy related. So my sword, I have a Kaigunto, which is a Japanese Navy issued katana. Um, and it's an uncommon style where some of the fittings are a little bit more practical. It's kind of mid-war to late war, but it doesn't it doesn't look last ditch. Like it's not messy. It's just simplified. Does that make sense? Right? Like it doesn't look gross like a late last stitch 99 does. It just doesn't have some of the like the filigrees and some of the fancier parts from an earlier sword. So I love that one because I found it in an antique shop and they knew that it was a Japanese sword. They didn't know the market, and so I bought it for $600, and it's probably somewhere between a 15 and a $2,000 sword.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, fun snag. And then my favorite rifle is a Japanese Type 35 02/45. So that one is a last ditch,
Ooh.
and it was the Japanese Navy took Type 35 receivers and used them as subcaliber training devices for naval gunners. So basically, right, you're trying to shoot a big, huge naval cannon. It's more manageable to use a smaller device to try to aim it and train your marksmanship and your gunnery, like mathematical skills.
Oh,
And then they took those receivers and then they bundled them up with a bunch of parts to include like training rifle parts and stocks at the end of the war and put them together. So anyway, like the bluing on it is probably the prettiest bluing out of any of my guns. It's got this like rich, gorgeous dark blue bluing, but then the stock is like one of the worst out of my collection. The it's all like right angles, like they didn't square off the wood, and then the wood is like super warped. So so it's just like super rough. But then it's built around a Type 35 action, so it's got the kind of unusual type of hook safety to it that's more broad than the normal Type 30. So yeah, I like that piece.
sounds fun.
That's an interesting one.
I don't know about shooting that one.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I'll risk it.
Shit.
And I like your concept of polyp collections or little side collections because some of the people I see like on other collecting boards or Reddit or whatever, they'll get like hyper focused and won't buy anything outside. But I guess that's the extreme version of one of the most of the stuff I see on Reddit where they'll buy anything that comes across their site path that's cheap enough.
Yeah, I'd say my first like year or so collecting, and I haven't been collecting for very long. I started in early COVID, so like it was like late 21. I started, so not that long. Anyway, my first year, it was just like you'd go to a gun show, and it was like, oh wow, that's only $200 or $300, and then you just end up accumulating things. And I knew that I liked Japanese, and so, right, like, I've kept most of my Japanese stuff, but there's been other stuff, like, I got a really good deal on a really nice US 1917. I think I got it
Ooh.
for like $420. And I just realized like this is like $1,000 gun, and while I like it and I had a fun time shooting it, I'm not passionate about it in the way that like I would rather use the money to buy something cool that's Japanese.
You're not
And
passionate
so
about the British design that the US just took in a hurry to to use?
I it was a fun gun. I really liked it. I think the action is great, super accurate, right? A little
Yeah, they're
heavy, but
great.
like really sleek. But I just realized that it was like, I only have this because I was just buying up good deals my first year, and I would rather have the money to deploy towards something like actually on my list or something that I'm like actually within my focus. So I ended up selling it.
Yeah, I've noticed that history could have no impact at all or, too much impact.
Y-
I've seen both
Yeah,
sides of the spectrum. One of my friends, he doesn't care about the history of anything. He calls my stuff that old crap. Like, he doesn't care. I've told him countless stories about my stuff.
yeah. I think like this past year, or yeah, this past year, I finally thinned out the collection enough to like when I sold some stuff. I think I finally sold my MILSURPs that are past 1945. I think the last two were like a
Huh.
Russian and a Chinese SKS. So those two are gone. So I think now everything I have is 1945 or prior. So I think I thinned down the herd when I was use the money
Yeah.
to buy obviously other things to fund other purchases for the collection. But I think selling those two off kind of narrowed down everything too. So that I bought years ago.
And I think that's a good tip that a lot of newer collectors also kind of miss. Because I always see like the no sell, only buy mindset talked about a lot. Whereas I feel like it's kind of short sighted because you're like preventing yourself from really upgrading your collection to like things you actually want instead of things you just happen to buy and accumulated, like you mentioned.
Definitely. Yeah, there's things that I've bought in the last year or two that I would never been able to fund without selling something that I've already had in the collection for a while. That luckily appreciated and accumulated value over the years.
I think if you've had it for years, you've shot it, you've appreciated it, you've taken your pictures of it, it's been on your you're allowed to sell it and it still counts that you get
Yeah,
credit in life that you've owned it and that
it's the memory. It's the guns we meet along the way, right?
exactly. There's nothing wrong with selling something,
And you
like
can you can talk educated about it, like you've handled it, you did the research about it. No need to
right.
hang on to it if you're pursuing other things. It's so much easier to buy something if you can be like, well, I can sell that, and I only have to add $200. Oh, easy.
Definitely, that's
Yeah.
how a few of mine were they were large purchases, but in the long run, I was only out a small amount of money, or I was able to upgrade and do a one for one swap, essentially cash value, just because I've held on to it for a while. The appreciation came up, and was able to get something nicer for the exact same price I paid for, or that I
Yeah,
got for the upgrade.
an
Oh yeah,
investment.
I'd say upgrades are even another tip because I had been kind of hesitant about some of those. I was like, well, I already have, for example, a Carcano. I don't need to buy another one. But then I got the opportunity to buy like a really nice Carcano long rifle. I'm like, well, I can just sell my other Carcano long rifle, add $50, and I have one that's 5 times as nice as the one I had. So
Right. That's the
Yeah.
question. Would you pay $50 to have one 5 times as nice? And everyone would say, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's what I did with a Carcano, like you, Kelly, where I was finally able to upgrade an M41 to almost a probably an unissued pristine import that is exactly how it should have left from the factory, where it's beautiful. But I actually got more money for selling a previous M41 to pay for that, so I actually came out like $50 on the plus side on it.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
The only catch 22, and this is probably the lesson on the other side of the coin, is that you have to be realistic with yourself on whether or not you're gonna sell your first one. Uh, I got a Type I Tucano, and it's like probably the nicest one I've seen. The bluing's really nice. It's made by Beretta, and it has a sling that's kanji matched to the series and serial number on the receiver. Just really, really nice. But it was missing the cleaning rod. Type I cleaning rods have a star on them, and they're slightly different length than a Type 38 Japanese Onisaka's cleaning rod. And so anyway, so I bought another Type I because it did have the cleaning rod. And I thought like, well, like my current one's so nice that I'll just take that cleaning rod and then sell the rifle. Well, then I got the rifle in hand, and it was a different manufacturer, and the stock was slightly shorter because the Japanese Navy modified some of them and not all of them.
Yep, just stuck.
Yep. And then I literally I bought a third one and then actually did take the cleaning rod and then sold that one. So it's just
Yeah.
sometimes it can be sometimes you can lie to yourself and end up with more than one copy.
Yeah, I think most of the time when you do buy something like that, I think most of the time you can identify like right then and there, like, oh, this will be an upgrade, or I will upgrade this in the future. Just like a bolt mismatch K98K that you buy to
Mm,
eventually get a matching one. But so I think most of the time you can identify that one right away when you are buying it. But yeah, like you said, there are those instances where you finally get it in hand, or the intended upgrade, and then you're just like, well, I think I want to keep both.
Yeah,
yep, yep.
but you said K98, which you go to buy an upgrade, and now it's like, well, that one's a DOT, this one's a BYF. It's like shit. Now I
That's what I
have to
got.
keep them.
That's what I got my RC K98K for. That I'm keeping, so I can shoot that one and have fun with it versus the others.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of sitting with my M95 because I just got my super nice World War One 8x50 M95, but I also still have my really nice refurbed 8x56 M95.
They're
I've been
different.
trying to sell 8x56, but no one's biting, and it's getting to the point where I'm just like, well, for that price, I might as well just keep
Yeah,
it.
that's how my RC K98K is right now. I had it on the chopping block to sell to buy something else. No takers on it. It's not a very good market for selling right now. So I decided I was like, yeah, I'll just keep it. Too much time has passed in between, so I'm just gonna decide to keep it and keep it as a good shooter.
Yep.
The wave will come back for the German firearms. Don't worry. All right, let's do some of our pickups here because I know we have some cool pickups. And let's give a tip for someone who's looking to purchase or get bid on something that you just picked up. Let's be nice,
Let's see.
helpful.
I've only had one MILSURP this year. We'll say 20 limited to 2025. How about that? Unless you haven't got anything yet.
No, yeah.
I've only gotten one so far, so I'll be quick. I got a Mosin Nagant in 1891, not a 9130. It's a New England Westinghouse. It was finished captured, but it has a super unique and super rare stock. I did make a short on this on our channel, so go check it out. Yeah, give me some views. It has a extremely early finger rest stock. So the Mosins originally came with a little metal tab behind the trigger on the wrist of the stock that you would rest your fingers against. And that feature was discontinued in 1893. So this stock is
That's cool.
from 1891, 1892, or 1893.
And who knows how much they did in 1891?
Yeah, probably not very much.
And the fact that it lasted that long for the refurb process too.
Yeah, and the stock it has another unique thing is it's an Austrian-Hungarian capture of World War One. So it doesn't have Russian sling swivels. It doesn't have Finnish sling swivels. It has Austrian sling swivels, which are different. And it has the marks on the stock for like the Austrian arsenal inspection. And it has the mark on the stock that it was an 8x50, the Austrian caliber of World War One conversion. Which obviously the stock isn't original to a New England Westinghouse because those were like 1915 to 1917. So the Finns more than likely just threw this stock on the rifle because they had a stock and they had a rifle and they just pieced them together. But the stock has been around and seen some things, so it's really cool to find one of those out in the wild. And finger rest, I didn't realize how rare they were. Some of the guys in here yelled at me to go buy
Yeah,
somebody.
I've only
But-
seen it in the book.
Because I saw it, I just came across it at a gun show. So that'll be my tip: is just to always keep your eyes open. You'll never know what you'll find just out there in the wild. And like, yeah, you might see some of these rare features, but don't discount them or don't forget about them because like sometimes they can just pop up in the middle of nowhere. So keep your eyes open and know what you're looking at when you see something like that. Because I noticed the finger rest. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I posted it in the group, and they're like, holy shit, a finger rest! Go buy that like immediately. I was like, really? Are they that rare? Because like 3 other guys in our group have one, which there's probably less than like 100 in the U.S. or something like that. So It's weirdly populous for our group, but it's not at all common to see them whatsoever in the wild.
So it was Russian, captured by the Austrians, and then I guess sold to
To
the
Finland.
Finns, and then
And,
used back onto against the Russians.
yep, and then imported into the U.S.
It's awesome.
Keep in mind it was a New England Westinghouse receiver too, so it has that
Yeah.
part too.
Yeah, so there's like 5 interesting things about this Mosin.
Yeah, I have a Mosin
Wow.
similar to that, where it's like Russian, obviously. Then it was Austrian captured because it has the AZF marking on it in the World War One era, and then it was most likely sold to Finland. So it has that 3 country like you're talking about, but yours is a little bit more more into that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with it, so I was glad to get it. And it was like just a standard Finn M91 price. Maybe a little higher than a regular Finn M91, but never know what you'll find, so keep your eyes open and don't give up on finding things out there.
That's one of the reasons I so enjoy Finnish rifles. Um, I suppose you have to accept a little bit that they're not like the purest, like no markings, only one country type guns. But I love the fact that they can trade hands and you have the history from both countries' usage. Right? Like who knows, right? World War One and different conflicts, World War Two with Finland, and it's just really neat to have all of that history in one physical object in your hand.
Oh yeah, and it's been around for 120 years or whatever.
It's amazing.
I can go next. Mine, I've got one really cool one and then like one pedestrian type one. Um, I haven't bought anything in 2025 yet. We'll get to why when we're talking about what our plan is for the year. But right at the end of 2024, I bought a modern gun, which is the first modern gun I've bought in like 3 years, and I've only bought 2 total. I got a Keltec Sub 2000, those little
Oh my
nine
God.
millimeter. Yeah, yeah, the little
I saw
nine
you
millimeter.
talking
Like
about it. I didn't know you got it. It's awesome.
so, yeah, I'm excited. I got the second generation one, but it came with a red dot, and then iron sights on it too. Um, and it was only $305. So I was just very patient because I figured, right, the gun I think they retail for about 500, and then the red dot is like another 75. And so I thought, right, like I don't care about used guns, right? Like if you're into milsurps, you recognize that, you know,
Yep.
these guns are okay. And so I was just patient with it. So I've been looking forward to that to get like a fun range toy. So that's maybe not as interesting for the group, but just kind of fun. But
You
then
got to
for
suppress it now.
yeah, there we go. Right. Um, but for milsurps, my last pickup for 2024 was a speaking of Finland, I've been hunting for a Type 30 Arisaka gun sold after the Russo-Japanese War to Russia for use during World War One. And then when Finland separated and declared their independence, there's a bunch of Finnish Arisakas. And so this is one of them. It popped up. We have a couple of FFLs in our or one FFLs in our Discord group, and one of them just said like, "Hey, is anybody like interested in Type 30?" And then I zoomed in on the stock and I saw that there was a serial number there, and then I knew to look for an S mark, which is the Finnish Civil Guards marking on their rifles. And so from there, I connected where the guy was, and he was local to me, which is pretty cool. Because
Wow.
the FFL was over in Kansas, and I live out in Virginia. And so I got to pick this one up, and it's funny, right? This is again, right? Knowledge is how you get ahead in this one.
Wait, did you say Virginia to Kansas? That was your local?
No, so it was Joel posted it. Panzerfaust Almery posted it to our group and said like, "Hey,
Oh,
somebody reached out to me to sell this. Like, anybody want it?" And I said, "Oh, I'm interested in that." And then we just like I got to talking to the actual seller, and he was only 2 hours away from me.
Yeah,
Like
the
he was
same
gonna,
exact thing. Same exact thing happened to me with Joel with a K98 for a guy up in Virginia driving through North Carolina where I'm
yeah,
at. and I met up with him to make the deal. So literally the same exact situation, just a different type of rifle.
That's awesome. Yeah, so right,
You
like
guys are in
connections
different
again.
states. Jesus.
Yeah, make connections. It's a relatively small community actually, like among the gun community. But anyway, right, like this seller, he told me after I bought it for $500. And then like he wasn't smug about it, but he told me he got it for $100. But this is where knowledge is power in that I knew it was finish used and he didn't. And I knew that a finish used type 30 is like roughly a $1,200 gun. And so he got a great deal, so he thought, because he sold it to me for a $400 profit, but I bought it for $700
He
less
was
than
happy.
they normally go to. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, good for him. He's happy, like easy day. But had he done his research, particularly because right, like the stock serial number was in the pictures. Like he saw that it had a serial number and took a picture of that. So had he done his research, like, hey, why is this stamped down here? He could have made another, you know,
So what
700 bucks.
should people get like the bonsai books? Like
Yeah,
what's the
right.
best
Like,
research shit to go to?
yeah, I think it depends. I always get frustrated when you go onto forums and typically it's older collectors like won't give out knowledge and they'll gatekeep it behind ridiculously expensive out of print books. The Luger forum is particularly guilty about this. I am not a Luger collector. I really like Lugers. I own one. It's finish used. I'll probably buy another one. At some point, but like I'm not a Luger collector. I don't need a 700 or $500 Luger book, right? Like I would be willing to buy $100 Luger book. The flip side
Right.
is, right, I am a Japanese collector. So I own, gosh, my library of Japanese books, like certainly several hundreds of dollars, right? Like probably close to $1,000 in reference books. Because, right, like you get ahead by studying and books are a great reference for that, right? Forums are also wonderful, friends are also wonderful, but like people have spent literal decades of their lives like compiling all this information into books. So I would say like buy books based on what you very specifically want to collect. And if it's outside of that, then right, use your other resources.
You have to have your
So like,
patience on the forums.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of sifting through nonsense.
And
Yeah,
if a
and
book's
also, right, like, again, the, like, pay it forward concept. If anybody asks me to look at any of my Japanese books, I will 100% spend the time to dig through and take pictures and send it to them. Flip side, right, like, I've had others who are very kind. Holmes has been very kind. My FN 1910 book, I don't own yet the Vanderlinden, FN Pistols book, and I need to buy it. I just haven't gotten around to buying it yet. But he was kind enough to send me several pages about the Japanese used ones when I was trying to determine if the one I was going to buy was legitimate or not. So rely on your friends, but also then like pay it forward.
And another tip for books. If you have an interest in the area and you think you might get into it, and the book's only like 40, 50, 60, basically under $100, just go ahead and buy the book. Unless, go ahead and read reviews first, because there are a lot of outdated books out there with like bad information. But if the book's cheap enough, usually there's just so much information more than what's
Yep.
on the internet out there.
And you never know. You never know when it's going to go out of print, and then once it goes out of
Exactly.
print, that price goes up 100, 200, 300%. So
And
Yep.
the Reddit forum post will go down 72% because people will have the answers.
so yeah, I'll go ahead and share mine. I already talked about the two black powder guns that I got, but I'll say my last two main purchases for 2024, which I didn't receive until actually the beginning of 2025 and earlier this month in January.
That counts.
Um, so one was, and luckily because it was the holidays, I didn't really want them to ship during the holidays either. So um, one was something I've been chasing for a very long time. It was and there's only about 12 in the states, so and about the same amount up in Canada too. Um, so it's a Carcano, believe it or not. It's a 9128 Tromboncino, so it has the grenade launcher attachment to the side. which is what the
Crazy.
true 9128 is versus what the common collector community calls a 9128 rifle. This one actually has the grenade launcher with it, matching to the rifle. Still active. It's not a destructive device or anything, so no paperwork or anything needed with it. But like I said, there's less than a dozen or so in the States from imports way back in the day. And a lot have either not survived, got separated somehow, or they're deactivated or registered. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to get. But this one, not because it's exempt. But I've been looking for one for a very long time, and I think the last one that came up at auction was back in 2022, which sold for about the same price that I got mine for.
And are you going to shoot it
Um,
and launch a
once I
projectile?
once I do more research and talk to specific people about it, I'm definitely down to try and shoot 3D print something or get someone in the 3D community to print me out something and do some tests with it. Because it takes
Just get a potato, just jam it in there.
yeah, I can do that too. What's really interesting about it is a lot of people don't know is it's literally just a Carcano receiver slapped to the side of a regular Carcano rifle. Where you take the bolt out of the main rifle, you insert it into the grenade launcher receiver. The sears are connected from the same trigger, and you just work it like a bolt action where you actually use the same type of ammunition too. It's no different than standard 6.5 Carcano. It's not any blank firing grenade specific. So it works to where the receiver, the end of the receiver, the chamber is expanded to where the bullet has nowhere to travel. Where on a normal rifle, you have the barrel where the bullet is seated in the chamber, so it has a place to travel after firing. Here, there's no place for it to travel, and also no place for it to gain speed. So the pressure from the gunpowder goes around the bullet, and the receiver catches the bullet, and it's a spigot grenade, so the pressure actually pushes the spigot grenade out from there. And then when you cock it open to extract the cartridge and everything, the bullet will actually just fall out when you tilt it back.
Wow.
So it definitely helped. It helped with logistics and everything. So they didn't have to worry about having special grenade firing cartridges or anything. They just use regular Carcano ammo.
Man, so it just enough power to blow the bullet out of the case.
Yep. So definitely something very cool. Like I said, it's very, very, very hard.
How well
to
is it
find.
made? Like, if you bang it, does it knock the other receiver off?
Oh no, it's pretty solid. It has a lot of different attaching points to the rifle that are through the wood, underneath the wood. So you'll often see like refurbished 9128 stocks put on regular Carcanos during the refurbishment process. So you'll see wood dowels, replacements, screws cut into the stocks to use on regular Carcanos. So you often see those cuts. I had a Mosquito that had a Trombonsino stock on it. Just it had the old cutouts for it.
Wow.
But that's very common to see versus the actual launcher and it all being. But it's a very, very, very sturdy setup and everything too.
And I wonder how accuracy is with another receiver to the one side.
I think the range on it goes out to about 200 meters based off the rear sight. So it has a little interesting like side setup, like obviously volley sight off to the side. But it's really well done. And then another one I got literally the week after at a different auction in December was another one I've been hunting for a while. Was a Ross rifle Mark III, so the 1910. I had one previously, but that one looked like it was made later, unissued, so it had no unit markings on the stock, no history to it that I could really tell. I used that to upgrade to this one, which this one has a unique history where it's actually documented in a couple of different like American Rifleman articles online and everything. This exact rifle where where it really it saw it was issued to the 29th Battalion CEF over in Europe for World War I. And then from there, when the Ross rifles were taken off the front lines, it was later reissued to the 8th Special Royal Marines in 1919 to go over to Ireland to fight the IRA. So
Wow.
it has special unit marks on it to denote the Royal Marine usage in the 1919 to 1921, 22 ish Irish Civil War, War for Independence kind of thing. Um, so it has that unique history, like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
with touching so many different hands. That
Love
this
tracing all
one,
that. That's awesome.
yeah, this one actually documented it, and it has the unit marks to show it and articles written on it to show its history versus just World War One. It actually has some cool IRA history that not a lot of people really know too much about or really dive into, because but it's such a crazy, unique thing in history with the Irish Republican Army.
Man, that's
So
That's
incredible.
solid
those
upgrade.
those are my two big
Yeah.
pickups in December that I eventually got in January once they shipped and arrived and everything. So it was a crazy week getting those two.
I
But
bet.
two ones that I've been looking for a long time to add to the collection.
Pretty good too to add. Jesus. I added two new ones this month, almost as good. They're MILSURP adjacent 22 rifles. So it's almost as good as a grenade launcher and an IRA gun. But my first pickup was a 22 made in 1945 that has a cool story. At the end of World War II, the French rolled in and took Mauser Oberndorf, my favorite factory. And while a lot of the machinery, the Germans ran with a lot of it on their last ditch run, the 22 rifle machinery was sitting there with the workers, apparently. And so the French just started making 22 Mausers for themselves, and they called them the Mas 45. One of the things I picked up today. It's essentially the same as a Mauser KKW, but it has a peep sight and a detachable magazine. But after a few months and over 10,000 rifles made, the Russians got wind that they were making rifles and got angry. And they contacted the French and said, "Hey, I thought we weren't doing that. We have some V2 rocket sites here we're dismantling, but we could just start making rockets if you want." So the French, of course, complied. You know how they are. Ooh. And they took all of the Mauser tooling that was left and brought it back to Saint Antien and took all the workers too, apparently. And the Russians also took all that V rocket tech back home and started making V2 rockets. That was nice of them. But the
We took
the
all the we took all the scientists.
right,
That's how we started NASA.
yep. So there was a lot of taking stuff at the end of that war. But the French didn't have a good training rifle, and they made 40 to 50,000 of these. But the first 10,000 or so had Mauser barrels because they used the ones that were just sitting there, and that's what mine is. It's a Mauser banner marked barrel from the first batch, and they wrote Fab Moss above the banner to say that they put it together at Moss. So that's cool. And these rifles I heard they used into like the 70s for training, and they're pretty good. They're pretty solid. They are like Mausers. So my tip on this was only marked as a regular Moss 45. It didn't say it was a Mauser. So take that extra second to just click the picture of the receiver, in an ad, and see if it's one of the rarer ones. And then my other pickup was a small, tiny 22, but it's beautiful. It's a Guslav Work 22. I'm terrible with these names. Germany, the Simpson and Company were making all the great 22s in Germany, but they were a Jewish owned company in the 30s. So you know how that went. And they were kicked out and they put in this German company that was BSW, and they started making K98s and 22s, and then they became Guslav Work. So this one was just listed as German 22 Justlauf with a J. So it was $100 something, but now I have to get a BSW K98 just to get the matching pair.
Yeah,
And
good luck with that one.
yeah, I know. And it's hard to get a tip for these. I don't know much about these German 22s, so I started doing my research, and I realized there's so many of them. But a
Mhm.
good place to start is that Simpsons has a 22 area on their website, and you can see all the subtle differences, and you can kind of get a feel of what kinds there are, and maybe even buy their book if you're into the German trainers.
Is that the one that does it resemble a K98, or
Yeah.
is it kind of look like a normal hunting rifle?
No, these are like fancy rich guy or women looking 22s. They have a flat handle, very shiny, very nice, very tiny. The same company went on to make full stock training rifles for the German soldiers after this, like the following year.
Gotcha. Cool.
So two little 22s with some MILSURP adjacentness. All right. So that was great stuff.
Yeah, 22s are fun to go down. I have a book, a small book on Marshall 22s. That's kind of like the quick and down and dirty Bible / guide for that. So that's really helped me out to decipher U.S. training 22s. So I can get one or two in the collection and everything. That's been very helpful. So I'm not sure of anything for German or other countries, but usually that's lapped
Yeah.
into the bigger books of like the K98K book, that series that could have some 22 stuff in there.
Right. The
So
German soldier used ones, a little less of them, so we can kind of, you can get a hold of it. But I went down the rabbit hole for the regular 22s and I just like climbed back out. Like there's too many
yeah, because
quacking bushes and
you also went down that rabbit hole of like the 1903 Paris Dunn rifles or
right.
Yeah.
trainers too.
I had to get out of that too. It was tough. I have 8 of them.
What?
Yeah. So then I moved on to 22s. Now I have 8 German 22s now, but
Yeah, I have the
there's a
three
billion more.
the three
You got a
Bolila
sickness is what you
Carcanos.
Yep, I do have a sickness.
They're just toys, right?
I mean, Paris Dunn's pretty much, yeah.
It's
They
New
are
York
toys.
it's New York compliant. That's what it is.
Hey,
Exactly.
there you go. And maybe you can have a 22 if you ask nicely.
All right. So when I first started collecting and I was looking up the lists of World War II bolt action rifles, I saw that some people considered each country, each manufacturer, every model, and each production improvement as separate guns that you must collect. And some others would be like something as simple as the action. Like their list was complete with I have a World War II Carcano, I have a World War II Mosin. So I was curious how you fellas feel about this. If someone were to say, I have all of the main World War II bolt action rifles, what would you think they had? How deep do you think they'd go? Does that include every country? Does that include the major players?
I
Or
think at face value, they'd probably think the major players Axis versus Allies.
Yeah. So
That stems from the movies, from the video games, and everything like that. So I
what about
think
like
that's where
carbines
most
and short
people.
rifles?
I think those are more like side stuff. Like, oh, I have every main one, but I also have an M1 carbine because I'm in America, so I need to have one. So
yeah,
I don't
I
know.
definitely would think of the big three on either side, and then like the main service rifles for each one of them. So like
Yeah,
Japan Type 99, Germany Car 98K, Italy, I guess one of the Carcanos. They get kind of muddled there for which one was the true main rifle.
Well, then is it okay to just get one of the Carcanos? Or do you have to go, wait, they use the 38, but then they also use the 38 and 735 because they had,
I think I mean,
It's
you could probably look up which one was most numerous, depending on like what time frame you're going for.
I think it's hard. I think it depends on like what is your commitment to MILSURP, right? Like is this like a 30-year hobby or like you played Call of Duty and you need a couple of rifles, right? Like because I think about like even like Japan, right? Like yeah, we said Type 99. But what about all the soldiers in China, right? There's way more thousands of soldiers in China and they were using the Type 38. And the 99 didn't get rolled out till like late 42, 43. And so it just like and you slap that nuance on literally every single country, right? Like US, right? Are we talking
Well,
sorry?
when I asked one of my friends this question, they said something like that, and they said, "Well, if he says the legit, the main World War II bolt action rifles of World War II, I would think it includes the 38 was used, the 99 was used, like every." But I thought it would be just maybe, like we said, like Holmes said, one each of the main standard rifles.
Yeah, I guess it depends kind of who you're telling that to. Are they just some casual non-collector, or are they kind of into collecting, or are they like an advanced collector? Because if you tell that to one of us, we'll laugh at you. You don't have all the right things.
So, what about you guys personally? When you want a Type 99, let's say, do you go as deep as me where I wanted a early, middle, and then a last ditch, or do you want all the manufacturers, or are you crazy like Chills?
No one's that level.
Wants one of
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah, I think over the
or
years,
is it just what you're interested in? I guess.
for like the 99 example, I think I wanted, and I got one last year, uh, a matching, has all the goodies, the dust cover, mum A sights, monopod, Type 99. Um, got one last year, but I also had the thought of wanting an early, a middle, and kind of a late one. But that's more of like down the road. I'll get those as I go, not necessarily looking out for one, not top of the list or anywhere near the top of the list.
All right, but it's on the list.
It's on the list, yeah, but it's not something I'm gonna actively seek out. If I find a deal and it comes along, I'll definitely try and grab that.
But not all manufacturers are on the list. Like
No,
you're not
no,
going
no, no,
Jensen
no.
and whatnot.
No, there's a few people I know who are like that. And I know, Michael, you're kind of going down the or wanting to go down like what the Kakura rabbit hole, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
it's I think it's like it's what you focus on too, right? Like I have been able to be like I've resisted buying other stuff so that I could buy more Japanese stuff, you know what I mean? Like so I suppose that means that like my list of Japanese stuff is way higher prioritized
mhm.
than other guns that I think are cool. Because I think like I don't know, after a while you're just like every single gun is super cool.
Well, that's a
It's
benefit
just
of
whether or not you
having
want
a focus.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's just whether or not you wanna prioritize the spending of the money on it, right? Like, I think post World War II guns are really cool. I think, 1800s guns are really cool. It's just, am I ever gonna own it?
But
Mm,
I'm
probably
stuck in a
not.
too broad of a collection area. I am like 1850 to 1950, you know? So anything
yeah,
in there that's a good price, I'm like, shit, I want that. I don't have that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like for me, like the World War I, World War II, I try to stick to that as much as possible. Obviously dipping into the black powder stuff recently, but along those lines, I'm the kind of guy who wants one good representative example of a model. I searched for years to find a good deal on a good representative wartime, shows some use matching K98K from World War II. The black powder stuff, the Chaspo and the Mauser 71. I'm not going into getting all the manufacturers, different years, or anything like that. I just wanted one good representative example for the collection. So that's kind of where I lean towards that stuff. But I know there's obviously more
Right.
focus out there where I know you're a Mauser guy. Kelly's a World War I guy
Yeah.
mainly, and then like Michael, he likes again like the Kokura, the Japanese style stuff. So
I give myself, like, a little bit of grace. Like, I have, like, I don't know, it's somewhere between, like, 250 and $350, uh, type guns, where if I see something cool and it's, like, 300 bucks, then I'm like I can that's cool. Like the Keltec, right? Like I've looked at that since C and Arsenal put their video like playing with one. I've been like,
Yeah.
this would
Yeah.
be really fun, like just kind of goofy.
Right. If it
And I
was
was like, well, I don't
3,000,
want to
you wouldn't be
spend
thinking about it.
exactly, right? Like it's like, well, I'm not gonna spend tons of money because then that's a really nice Japanese gun. So for instance, I found on a local forum, this is like a year and a half ago now, a Type 54 Chinese Tokarev, um, and it was $210, I think. And it was like, yeah, right? Like that sounds cool. Like kind of like a
Yeah.
sleek 1911. It's Chinese, so it's Asian, so that's what I like. The Yakuza bring them in illegally into Japan, so then I've got a Japanese collection, right? Obviously, this one wasn't, illegally imported into Japan, but it's just like spend 200 bucks or 250, on something. But I think once you get like a little higher priced, then it really does come down to prioritization. Because I think if you're a normal person, right, like money is absolutely a factor in all of this. Like you're just not going to be able to buy whatever you want, or right, like you're gonna you're gonna have financial problems.
But it's also it's prioritization, but it's also availability
Yeah.
because
Right.
if
Right.
something comes up at the time when you're trying to save, every single one of us has gone, all
Oh,
right, I was trying to
Yeah.
save, but fuck
Yeah.
it.
yeah, yeah.
That's what happened to me this
Uh-huh.
month. I
But if you're
got
Yep.
not looking, it's a start.
That was
Like,
2024 for me. So
yeah, me
Feel like
either.
you said homes, I think you said earlier, like it's a tough seller's market right now. There's so many of us just had so many dang good deals in 2024 as buyers that I know tons of us that are kind of on either a pause or slowed down for 25.
yeah,
That's what I
that was the
told
thing is
myself.
the big things that I
A
did
good
want,
year.
the big things I did get in 2024 when I was trying to sell to make up for the cost was
Mm,
that was equally difficult as well. So another tip out there is like just because you have the value of what you think you can get for it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that within trying to put it on the market for a week. It may sit for a few months or you have to cut your losses. So
If you're patient.
exactly. So don't think I have a gun that's worth this much that I can sell instantly because the market really dictates that. And I saw that a little bit in 2024.
Yep.
that's so true because if you overextend yourself and then you like have a real life thing happen, right? Your car breaks down or whatever, then you're trying to sell even more. We just had a guy on Discord sell a ton of guns. And like I don't know the background, but he said like, "Hey, I've had an emergency and I need to just offload and sell a ton of stuff," and it was really well priced.
But he had a
Um,
backup plan. His backup plan was telling all of us.
yeah, I
We
mean, and
we
it
are the
worked, right?
emergency fund.
Yeah. He did sell, I think it had to have been, like, everything was very well priced because he sold almost all of it
He
within
sold like
it was
half
probably
of them
what, 20 guns?
in like a day. Yeah, he posted I think 20 and now it's down to 10. So he's at like half of them
Yeah.
gone.
All right, so that's the tip, guys. Overextend yourself, but just have a network that you
Then
can
come to
offer up.
us and sell your stuff for cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
email me.
Credit
Sharks
card
with
debt
blood in
is
the
great.
water. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, I said I was on a break, and then the most recent gun I got is actually not MILSURP at all, but it's one of my side interests. Is I kind of like Cold War stuff. Like I have like an FAL and like AKs and stuff like that. And I got a Century Arms, one of the MP5 builds, the Turkish ones, and it was like $400 cheaper than what they're going for right now. So I'm like, well, shit, I can't say no to that, even though I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be saving money.
I think that's the trick though is you have to
It's
trick
cool.
yourself saying that you're on a break so that deal does come along. Because if you
Exactly.
don't say it, it's never going to come into fruition, you know.
Yeah, if you're walking around money in your pocket ready to buy, you're not gonna find a single
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Last time I
it
was on the
ain't coming up.
break, I stopped looking at a lot of, sites. So I was like, that's one way to be on a break. I don't look actively on the sites. And immediately, one of the guys in the Discord was like, "Oh, I got these Enfields for sale." Oh, come on. Those look
It was
nice. I want that.
it was like your Kelly, it was like your search for Smith and Wesson 1917.
Yeah, it took me forever because I was actually looking for one.
You were actually looking for one, and when ones did come up, you were either out of the country or traveling or doing something
Yeah,
to where we
like
we could not get a hold of you because I
like
was screaming trying to get a hold of you on a
it
few
happened
of
like
them.
3 times. Yeah,
That's funny.
Well, and then you have, like, your friends who are jerks, and they send you the good deals, you know what I mean? Like, "Hey, I'm on a buying freeze," and then they're on Gunbroker because 'cause they're not. And then they're like, "Michael, have you seen this? Like, you should buy this. Quick, quick, quick." And it's like, "Ah, like, I can't."
So, being the only almost pattern collector, Michael, do you try to get manufacturers? Do you care about like just one example, or do you try to get each,
Yeah, good
iteration?
question. I actually wouldn't say that I'm a pattern collector. I just because my focus is relatively narrow, right? It's one country, and then again, I've got 5 to 10 guns of a different country. Like I've got like I think 7 guns on my Italian front collection and 7 guns on my Finnish collection. So the bulk of my collection is Japanese, but I wouldn't say I'm a pattern collector in that I've got 399s. I've got a sniper. I've got a really nice matching mummed um, Goya, and then I bought what I thought was the latest produced cereal out of ginseng. But the font is like so terrible that actually there was an 8 that like actually was a 3 after like the whole community looked at it and they're like, oh, like super dorky, like zoomed in type like people taking pictures of all the different ginseng threes and comparing it, and they're like, yeah, it's definitely a 3 versus an 8. Anyway, so I have like a ridiculously rough last stitch 99, and those are my 399s. Um, what I don't have, and what Holmes was saying is that like I would love to get into more Kokura guns. So I lived in Japan, mostly up in so I'm in the Navy. US Navy, and I was stationed over there. And so mostly I was in Yokosuka, which is just south of Tokyo. But for 6 months, I lived down in Sasebo, Japan, on Kyushu. And that's actually pretty close to Fukuoka, which was Kokura in World War II. And just like have a lot of really good
Almost the
nostalgic
second
memories.
bomb site.
Yeah,
They had
yeah,
the
right.
cloud
Like
cover. We almost lost it.
yeah, and it's a beautiful city, like really great. If you ever visit Japan, it's totally off topic, but like get outside of like the Tokyo area because there's some really cool places to see. Like Kyushu has incredible history, really interesting history about like hidden Christians and the samurai clans that overthrew the or tried to overthrow the reigning clans. Like just anyway, like there's just so much regional history in Kyushu, and I got to live there and like had a really nice time in life. Like that time was a good time in my life. Anyway, so what that means is like I like Kokura because not really for any rational reason, but like I have a lot of nostalgia about it. My first MILSURP I bought was a Type 44, and it's Kokura. So, my I guess I mentioned this earlier, my 2025 goal, and I'm on a pause right now, why I haven't bought anything this year so far, is that I've been saving for about a year to buy a, Japanese light machine gun. So either a Type 96 or a 99.
Oh, snap.
Um yeah, and I've run into this problem where I've got enough saved, and I've run into some good deals on other manufacturers' 99s and 96s. But for whatever reason, I like close my eyes and I think like I'm gonna look at that gun and be dissatisfied that it's not a Kokura. So I need to wait and probably
Wow.
spend more money to get something that's emotionally important to me. So right,
See,
it's
so
totally
the
not
answer
rational.
is yes. The manufacturer what you care about the manufacturer,
It does matter.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. So I
It's
wouldn't
the
say I'm a
one
pattern collector.
it's the
Oh,
one
sorry, man, go ahead.
mismatched it's the one mismatched screw on a K98K that you know it's always going to be there.
But yeah,
Yeah,
He has a lot of
yeah,
emotion tied to his collecting, a lot of,
and I think, like,
history and
once
feelings.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Once you get to I don't think I'm an advanced collector, like, I think I'm a passionate collector. Like, I really appreciate the history and the knowledge of how small arms development plays into that, is important to me. Like, I'm not casual about collecting. And so once you're past that, like, casual level of collecting side story, I was at the CMP North store, and, I was picking out my Garand, and the guy just walked in, literally didn't even look, just physically grabbed one off the rack and said, "I'd like to buy this one." Like, he just very
Wow.
clearly just couldn't care less. I was there for, like, probably 3 hours just, like, looking and trying to figure out which one I wanted.
Right.
Um, but, like, some people are like that, right? Like, and I think that gets back to your original question, Tom, about, like, "Hey, what's a World War II rifle collection?" I don't know, like, is it 5 guns? Is it the same picture that you see on Reddit, the subreddit, like, 1,000 times? Yeah,
Right.
maybe, right? To me, that's really boring. Right? Like, I don't know, that's yeah, you can walk into any person's, like, collection and see that because they made millions of them, and it's really easy to get a 9130, a K98, a Type 99, right? Like, Lee Enfield Mark IV, right? Like, it's just, it's easy, and that's okay if that's something that, like, you're okay with. But I think for me, to Holmes's point, right, like, the mismatched screw bothers me. I'm gonna look at my VZ24. Really cool gun. The stock is, like, untouched. Came with a sling with kanji on it, but my bolt is mismatched. And it's the P series, the P 1937 made VZ24s,
Yeah.
and the bolt is a P series. I believe that it was switched on the boat ride home, right? they had several of these rifles. They took out the bolts. Somebody in charge collected the bolts, and then at the end of the ride, they distributed the bolts again, and the wrong bolt got in the wrong rifle. That's my belief about it, right? But it
Yep.
bothers me. Like I am looking, actively looking to upgrade my VV24 because I want a matching bolt.
Ha!
And that's just a thing I think you get to the like the neurotic nature of once you're past casual
Yeah,
collecting
you
where
could
that
start
stuff
nitpicking.
starts to matter. Yeah,
Like I had a VZ24 with a partial lion, and I was always bothered by that, so I had to get the full lion, of course. And now, of course, I
exactly.
have one with a partial lion and one full lion. I did not sell the other one yet.
And so overall, I'd say that like I'm pretty conservative when I buy guns. Like I try to not chase deals. Like I never get into bidding wars. And as a result, I've paid way under for almost all of my guns. And so if I pause and I think about like, hey, is it really going to bother me if I have a Nagoya versus Kokura? And I look at my really, really nice Type 99 early, got all the nice stuff to it. It's matching. I bought it from Conrad from Chills from the Type 99 website maker. Um, but it bothers me that it's not Kokura. And so like I'm also actively looking for the same rifle, but Kokura.
That's funny.
And so I'm willing to spend more time waiting for the right deal to pop up and frankly probably spend a little bit more money to buy a light machine gun from the manufacturer that I want.
All right, yeah, I'm not gonna forget that. So now I'll also be looking when I look at auctions if I see any light machine guns.
Just
Right?
casually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, take it as a
Casually.
warning. I'll get the bidding war with you.
Yeah, my brother too is looking for a Type 99 LMG now. He just told me because he shot one over the last couple weeks at a friend's house, and I think he said that's what his next big machine gun purchase is going to be. So
I'd like to
I'll
shoot one. That's it. I don't want to own one. Just shoot one,
Well, in July, might have a chance.
that's true.
maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, here. I have a few things here. Does it count as a like does it still check a box and does it count if the rifle has the crest removed and the markings removed?
I guess it depends what you're going for. If you just want an example of something, I guess it'll check it. But if you want like a nice example, or if you're like going after the crests, then obviously not.
Yeah, I think it also means like the idea of, is it something that's attainable too? Like, were all the crests ground or something like that, to where there's only a handful of known ones that still exist with the crest on there, or do you just cut your losses kind of thing?
How about Spanish Civil War guns? Do you find that deters from the value or adds to the value or
Personally, me, it deters from the value.
think
It's
so?
just not. It's not something I'm interested in, and I know it's kind of like the Finnish Civil War and the Finn stuff. But to me, the Finn stuff is cool. The Spanish Civil War stuff to me is not that cool. But that's just me personally. So I stay away from that. But I know they ground a lot of crests. They a lot of their stuff was mismatched parts, refurb parts. Because I mean, countries just sold anything they could to them, and they took whatever they could get.
All right, so I guess it depends what rifle was saying, and I guess for all these things here it does. But what if it's a not often seen, like what if it's a 1903 Springfield that had the markings removed, the serial's there, but all the other words are removed? You
And you
think
might
that?
as well just get like a better one because the
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That
price,
doesn't count.
there's plenty out there.
yeah, the price difference isn't going to be significant. Yeah, like Holmes was saying, if it's hard to find or there's like a huge price difference, at least for me, like for example, World War One, you need an Ottoman gun. I have it's an Ottoman 1893, but it got the conversion, so it was only $300 versus an original Ottoman 1893. It's gonna
Right,
be like
right.
3,000
Yeah,
bucks.
yeah, conversions are a big one too.
That's the
Like just
placeholder
like
you
the
tell
crest.
yourself
Yeah,
fits it.
Yeah,
I do that.
so it covers it. It's good enough for now. One day I'll eventually upgrade.
And say is the same for sporterized and cut down rifles. I mean,
No,
Ooh,
that
no.
sucks. I wouldn't,
yeah, I don't even bother with them.
nope.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no, not worth it.
right? And you
Why
can't say
waste?
you have all the rifles if you have sporterized cut down gun. No, I think you have to have full military stocks.
Yep.
Yeah,
And like we said, that a lot of them don't have matching numbers on purpose. I don't think that matters as much as those other things we just said. But like the cleaning rod, to me, I don't care as much as Michael seems to care. And Mike cares too, I think, right? You got maybe
Yeah.
you won't care. Kelly, you care that as
Yeah.
much?
I would greatly prefer it have it. For some things, I understand if it's gone. I don't actually think I have
But it's
any
not
missing.
I look at it and I always see that it's missing and realize it immediately thing.
Oh, my Greek is missing, which you're never gonna find one of those. So
I have a spare M91 Mosin cleaning rod just in the off chance I find a great deal that's missing one, so I can add to the collection and then also add the cleaning rod. But
yeah,
Uh, I would say I'm like middle of the road. I think it's the same for me as bayonets. Like a lot of people are like, I have to have the same bayonet or I have to have a bayonet for every rifle. But for me,
Right.
I have 4 Type 30 Arisakas, and out of those 4, I have one original cleaning rod, one repro cleaning rod, and 2 of them I think have Type 38 cleaning rods stuck in there. I don't look at my 3 of them that are not original, and I'm annoyed by it because I know I have one, and so it's like, "Oh, hey, like I'm at the standard. I've got one of them."
Yeah.
Same with, like, bayonets. I've got 1 mid-war Type 30 bayonet and 1 trainer type bayonet.
Right.
I on my list, is an early actually, on my list because I want an early one displayed on my light machine gun, is that I want a early Type 30 bayonet.
yeah,
But I don't
I'm
need a Type 30 bayonet for every single rifle that I've got because it's
I'm
just at
I'm a
some
big
level, that's
Yeah.
proponent.
like, you add all those up, and that's more rifles you can buy.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm a big proponent for having a correct bayonet for all of my rifles.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, however, there are a few instances where I have 17 Carcanos, so I'm not going to get 17 1891 Carcano bayonets.
yeah,
I have a few, just like how Michael said with Type 30 bayonets. I have a few Carcano bayonets, and I also have like some of the harder to find folding um, M38 bayonets and the transverse bayonet, stuff like that. But I'm not going to go out and get 10 more 1891 standard bayonets just to have one for
yeah. I
each
like
one.
just one example of each, and I'm
But
good.
like for my
Yeah.
one-off guns, for I have a representative example of this country of this rifle. I want the bayonet for that rifle. That's correct for it. Because I don't plan on getting more from that country or for that series of rifles. So I just want the bayonet for me is the thing.
It
Don't
hurts
care
when you
about.
look at it like 250, 300 for some of the ones you want. You're like, oh
Oh yeah,
shit.
that's
Yep.
cheap.
Depending on what you're
That's
looking
cheap for
at.
some
Yep.
of them. Yeah, but like slings don't care about. Don't give a shit.
It's nice when you get one and it's on there. Go, oh, look, an original sling.
Exactly. Yeah.
And last one, do all your rifles have to be shootable? And if it's a common gun or something, I don't know. But your rifles personally have to be shootable?
For
Not
me,
necessarily.
yes.
So for me, not necessarily. Depending on, is it shootable in the sense of like
You
attainable
can you
ammo,
no.
or is it?
Shootable as in the condition to be fired
Oh
and it won't
yeah,
explode. Doesn't have a
yeah,
giant crack down the middle where it's gonna blow apart or
yeah. For the most part,
falls apart.
Like Kelly said, like yeah, they have to be shootable. I'm not going to buy a shit rod. So
Yeah, I don't want anything with like a plugged barrel or deactivated or
yeah,
completely corroded.
there's a criminal organization called Royal Tiger Imports for you if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Stocks that are broken really bother me. If something's got, like, a bad, not even bad, but, like, decent wrist crack, like, I don't buy it.
Yeah,
Even though,
yeah,
and that's being neurotic too, because at least my current place, I live in Virginia, like I said, but the public land for range shooting is really bad here. Like, it's like close to an hour and a half to go to a range. So I didn't shoot rifles in 24. I had a new baby and it was tough, etc. But like, it's hard. So anyway, I don't shoot very often. Um, and still, if I see like a problem that's going to prevent me from shooting something, I'm just not going to buy it.
Yep. Agreed.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
not
even
fun.
if you can repair it, like personally, I don't really want to buy something that needs a repair. because in the sense now I'm modifying it to where I'm personally modifying it versus what it originally was from the war, from it being issued. I can understand duffel cuts, and I don't mind duffel cuts and repaired duffel cuts. But if I see something with a wrist crack and then it was repaired by someone in their garage with some Acker glass or some rods, some dowels, or whatever it may be, to me, if I know I can get other examples that aren't cracked, then I'm not gonna. I'd rather spend the extra couple $100 for a good one versus save a couple $100 on a cracked one.
Yeah, I'll just always look at it, and it will, like you said, Michael, it'll just bother me. Just gonna
Me
sit
too.
there and arc at you.
Like my RTI guns when I look and see them. No offense, RTI.
All the offense.
So of course, there's lots of rare and expensive bolt actions that I want, but that's for another show. Like I want a Lee Navy, a Remington Lee, a Long Lee. That's just the Lees. But
Mhm.
I'd also like a Tankaver and a Tromboncino, and I had that on my list early. So here, I'm gonna share my list I found of World War II bolt actions because my first gun I was a under $200 Mosin 9130. Didn't really know what it was, and then I started doing my research on everything, and of course I said, all right, let me get all these World War II, one of each World War II, and I'll stop there. So 7 more rifles. I'll pick the top 8 countries, and then I'll stop. And spoiler, I did not stop. And like I said, I didn't know anything about cleaning rods. I didn't know about all the different manufacturers, and I just was like, oh, that looks cool. Did a little research and started buying. But I found my list, and I thought it was funny. Even back then, I had the PU sniper on here, and I have
Yeah.
fake first if necessary, then real. And I apparently loved Obendorf. I needed 4. See, about talking about different patterns. I needed 4 different K98s: pre-war, early war, mid-war, late war.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that when I was trying to sell a K. I was trying to sell one of my matching K98s, and even the RC, and you were like, "Yep, not Obendorf, not
Right.
buying it."
If I need another one, it's got to be an Obendorf. I put JFK over here in exclamations for the M38 and 6.5.
At least it's a right model.
Right, that was to
1940.
remind me what was the right model and caliber. But I updated it recently with what I had, and I realized I still don't have that sniper. But I did get my Enfields. I wanted a 4 and a 5. I always like the color to match with those Enfields with the 2-piece stocks. That's another
Yeah,
thing that bugs me is when they're too different. Even the handguards.
yeah,
I like when it looks like it was one solid piece that made it through all the wars. Yeah, the Arasaka is another one. I needed a early, a middle, a last ditch, and a long rifle. Still didn't get the long rifle. Still didn't get my M39. I only needed one finish rifle, and it was an M39. The first big book I found was the Ball Mauser book, which I
Mhm.
know a lot of it's been proven wrong, but a lot of it is right. And a lot of it teaches you who had what.
Yeah. It's a great comprehensive list.
Yeah. So, and then even the table of contents is broken down by country, so you can get a quick look at the model numbers, and then you could verify it online, which is what you have to do these days. But that's where I found I wanted the Crown ABL 1935 Belgian Mauser for some reason, and the Turkish KKL made my list. That was an interesting one. I wanted it. They can't give those away sometimes.
It was a very Mauser collector item.
Yeah, I see some bias here.
Well, because I had that ball book, and that was it. Like, all right, the 9822, because that's the first Czech rifle they made on German machinery. I was all excited. They took the machinery and made their own, so I had to get a 9822. I needed a VZ24 with the Lion, of course, the Polish WZ29, couple of Chinese ones, the Mauser and a Chiang Kai-shek one, some sort of markings.
So if something's not on your list, right? Like I'm not necessarily seeing like a prioritization here. Or maybe
Yeah,
that's
this
the
is level
Tom
1.
over there. There we go. Okay.
This is
But
level
like,
one.
I have,
oh wow.
if I put it to level 3,
That's a lot, man.
no, but it's not that big. Like an R35 Labelle is here. There's a pre-war Moss here.
There's a lot of yeses on the level 3.
Unfortunately, there's yet look nose on these Czech ones. I wanted 1233s. 3 is more like I don't think I'm gonna get it or it's expensive. Like well, this is just World War II. There's if I
Oh my
really go
God.
out,
Man,
and
I need to
go.
do this. I thought I liked Excel sheets.
Yeah, so if I go World War One level 3, the Tigre was on my list. It was anyone. Look, I wasn't being picky. I'll take any of the Tankavers I find.
I've seen some shitty ones, so
I didn't care apparently. But then I started caring a little more and more about one early, one late, you know? So I evolved. So I think it's a good idea. Make everyone make a list, and then you could keep it updated. And it's a good way to see what you're missing. And then my strictly Mauser one, I'm still way behind on a bunch. I need an 89 long. I don't have matching colors. I have an 89-16. So yeah, it's fun. Make a little list, and then you could sort it all out always. Even this Google's Google Docs online or Google Sheets online.
Mhm.
There's a lot of functionality now with these
Yeah.
tables built in.
So
You make
Tom, I don't know if
nice,
we
pretty
actually
things.
covered it. I think Michael, you mentioned your specific goal for 2025, but what are y'all's specific goals for 2025? I don't think we covered what we actually achieved in 2024, or am I skipping ahead? No, we skipped right over that, I think.
I think the biggest thing I achieved on my list, other than what I talked about earlier with the Ross rifle and the Trombensino, which is this one was on my list for it was actually number one on my list on my phone for the longest time, probably 3 or 4 years straight. I was finally able to pick up an RSC 1917, the French semi-auto rifle for World War One.
Yeah.
Finally able to pick one up. Still working on it a little bit. It's matching. It's still semi-auto. It still has the parts for it and everything. Just one part of the bolt is a little bit frozen up, so I just need to work on it a little bit more to free it up before I can start shooting it again. But I think that one, checking that one off the list, was probably one of the better feelings I've had. Checking off lists for guns was that one, because it for about 3 years straight was number one on the list, just sitting there. So,
I mean, how much earlier could you go for a semi-auto rifle at this point, right?
yeah, but for one that was officially adopted as a issued rifle versus the Mondragon and all that were more.
Right.
It was adopted, but it was adopted by Mexico, and then the Germans adopted it for small numbers, where the RSC was adopted for the standard infantry. So
Yeah,
that
they're
was the big
beaks.
one. Yeah, that was the big one on my list. That's been killing me for a long time, because not a lot come up, and when they do come up, they cost a pretty penny or something like that, or there's something wrong with it, whatever it may be. But this one fit all the check marks, so that was one that I was really proud to get this year, and show off and just have in the collection.
So what has moved to the top of the list now? Did you say? Because you said that was on the top.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything crazy on the top. I think
Uh-oh.
for 2025, maybe an original first contract M1A1 carbine, like a paratrooper. They're just hard to find.
Sick.
The first contract's hard to find. That's all correct. That didn't see a refurb or anything. Or a German G33 40. That's been on the list for a while. That a good one has not come up to where I could bite the bullet on it yet.
Jeez.
So that, and then kind of like what Michael was saying, is I want to take 2025 and really put a lot into savings for an eventual second submachine gun NFA item. So I think that's kind of what I want to focus on more, is savings for personal savings in the sense of family, emergency fund, stuff like that, but also set aside.
Responsible.
Yeah, exactly. So Michael should be proud about that.
Yeah.
But also like slow down the buying in the sense of putting that money towards a second machine gun, whether it happens in 2025 or 2028 or something like that. At least I put the money away for it for that reason.
And do you have any outstanding lists you're trying to complete? Like you need one more Bahia carbine, Carcano or something, or
Any holes?
yeah, you have any
No.
holes? That's what I'm looking for.
No, I think the Trombensino actually completed
That
the
was a big
Carcanos
hole
for
that you
me.
filled. Yes.
Yeah, I think the only thing on the Carcano one, actually, yes, this one is a big hole for me, for the Carcanos specifically, is a uh, M38 TS still in 735.
Oh,
Um, so I have a Mosquito that's still in 735. I have the M38 short rifle both in 6.5 and 735. Um, but the M38 TS is the hardest of the three M38 models to get in 735. I think the
cool.
last year or two, I think I've only seen one come up for sale.
Man, I don't even know if I knew that was a thing.
Very
It,
short
there's
lived.
so many models that it just sounds, they all sound the same after a while.
Yeah, the 38 TS is just like a normal 91 TS, but with the front barrel band for the bayonet and the rear sight, just the standard notch rear sight. Um, but yeah, very early, just like
Mm.
with the Mosquito and everything, they had it in 735 before they switched back to the 6.5 Carcano.
I'll keep an eye out because Carcanos are up there with the rifles that are most labeled as just Carcano, and then you have
Yeah,
to click the pictures and look and see
exactly.
735 on there, and then oh shit.
Yeah, I do a weekly search on Gunbroker and the like for. I just type in Carcano or 735 Carcano and see if anything pops up.
Yeah.
And that I haven't seen recently, and I check to see if it is in fact a 735 gun or not.
All right, so you closed off a notch in your Italian collection. And Michael, did you close any notches or have any holes? Maybe it will help you fill them. Sounds sexual. Let us fill your holes.
Get us demonetized, Tom.
I was but I was looking at my list of what I acquired in 2024, and it's not like a crazy long list, but I am happy with what I picked up. Um, I'd say that the two pieces that I was most happy to get was the 99 sniper from Holmes, and then that finished at 30, like right at the end of the year. Really good. Um, but I would, and I sold a fair number of things in 2024 as well to help cover that. I would say that the achievement that I was most happy of in 2024 was the saving part, to where I did a lot of intentional kind of delayed gratification where it's like, oh man, I really want that gun, but also I really want a light machine gun, and I don't have a ton of money to put towards this hobby. Like, two kids, my wife stays at home, so sole breadwinner type deal, right? And I just have a lot of like life goals that I'm saving towards too. So anyway, right, like money deployed towards the hobby isn't like a ton. So I've got to be really judicious about like what I save and what I spend on things. Um, I'm really happy with the fact that I saved enough that like by the end of 2024, I was actually able to start bidding on um 96s and 99s that I was seeing. And actually
Yeah.
I was out with Holmes down at his house. I don't remember when that was. That was either early 24 or late 23. I think early 24, right? Because neither of our sons had been born yet.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay. Yeah.
yeah, so late
So,
23.
anyway, and I was talking about whether or not I should try to go for a NFA item, and Holmes really encouraged me. He was like, "Well, you're like you got a good chunk of money already. If you just kept saving it instead of buying the newest hot item along the way, that's gonna like 30 years from now, you're gonna be happy that you did that." And I
That
think
is
it's
a
a good.
tough lesson that you try to
Yeah,
bestow upon people, especially the
yeah.
younger kids today. They everything's quick gratification.
Well, and it's so hard because I think, like, by definition, this hobby is about acquiring physical objects, and if you're doing that, it's so easy to, like, keep up with the Joneses, and I'm 100% guilty of it, right? Like, you see that, we've got some really good collectors in our, Japanese collectors, specifically in our Discord. We got Conrad, there's, another guy on, gun boards, it goes by Jack Frosty, like really top of the line
Yeah.
type collections.
I let the
Um,
Joneses go up on ahead. I'll meet you later.
yeah, and I think it's just like a visceral human thing where you see somebody else get something cool, and if they're a friend, and right, like that's the cool thing about this hobby is you make a lot of friends. You're happy for them, and you're like, "Wow, that's awesome." And then the next step is like, "I wonder if I could find something like that."
Like,
And so
damn, I
it's
need
so
one of those.
easy to get distracted by the goal, like the really short term collecting goals that I think it's important to remember, like, hey, like, and right, like this gets to like, what type of collector are you? Are you like, you played Call of Duty once and it was fun, so you want like 5 World War II rifles and then you're totally happy? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Or,
them.
right, are you a more serious collector? Are you somebody who's past that casualness and you're like, this is something that I want to pass along to my kids 30 years from now? Because if it's that, I think it's easier, maybe it's easier, I don't know. For me, it's easier to conceptualize like, hey, I am denying myself the enjoyment and the fun of buying this rifle right now. But I'm gonna have enough to buy something that I'm gonna be proud to own 30 years from now. So, like, and right, like, I'm not I'm not 100% perfect. I will see things and I'll jump at them because it's just like, "Ooh, that's a really good deal," or, "Ooh, I've really been wanting that for a long time." And then
For
it's
the
just like,
majority, make the right decisions.
yeah,
Once in a while, you can go out and grab something stupid.
Yeah, treat yourself.
exactly. Yeah,
We've all
and
done
right,
it.
like when you sell things too, then it's easier, right? Like I've got a few guns that are like really close to like falling off my like chopping block right now. And like my plan is like, hey, if I want something, I can buy it if it's reasonably priced. And then I'm gonna sell those things and then I won't have them anymore. 'Cause I've got my enjoyment out of them, and, right,
Yep.
I didn't let myself get into a bidding war, and I didn't get impulsive, so I didn't overpay for them in the first place, so I don't need to set the price sky high in order to, like, eke back all of my pennies out of it. You know what I mean? Like, some people buy
Right.
their guns, and they buy it way above market, and then they go to sell it because for whatever reason, they go to sell it, and then they like, "Well, I gotta get as much money as I have into it, of course." And then it just doesn't sell because they paid too much, and they were gonna have to take a loss then. So, so long, long, rambly thing to say that, like, I got a couple really cool pieces in 2024, like, by any stretch of the imagination, like, 24 was really good, for things that I did acquire, but I'm also happy with things that I didn't acquire because I've got the war chest, like, ready to deploy towards something that I'm, like, really excited about in a 30-year type fashion.
Yeah, and then you and I, we went out and shot my Rising that same day,
Yeah,
and
Ha,
no one is sad after shooting a machine gun. So
so true.
Very true.
that is true.
Yeah, and actually we had a
It
good conversation on,
patience.
like, yeah, patience. So, Holmes, we had a good conversation about like, hey, you could get a Rising and like they're roughly, 8 to 10 or 11K. And it's like, are you going to be happy with that? Like, is that going to be the thing that really fills your niche? And for me, it was like, it would be really fun. Like it would be fun range toy, and I think the history is really cool. And right, like it's got the Pacific usage that I'm interested in. But at the end of the day, I'm not a US collector. I have one Garand. That's it. Um, right? I'm a Japanese collector,
You
so
can
I
get like
should.
20 rifles for that. Jeez.
yeah,
That's the problem. I think that's the thing that's been like slapping me across the head this whole last year is that I don't. There's a lot of really nice Japanese guns that I don't have. Right, the advanced type collector Japanese guns that I don't have. I don't have a regular Type 35. I don't have a Type 2 paratrooper. I don't have a
Yeah, now you're
97
into the
sniper.
expensive you're into the expensive
Well,
area.
yeah, but, like
Yep.
but if you think about it, right, like, I could either get this light machine gun, or I could get every single one of those nice guns I just listed. And
yeah.
that's the problem is, like, you get into
Shit.
once you're into the, like, really advanced, like, you're spending that much money, it starts again, it's prioritization, and for me, like, I've determined, like, "Hey, 30 years from now, I'm gonna be like, along the way for 30 years, I'm gonna be able to come up with the small chunks of money, like, not small right, like, Type Type 35, right? It's like a $3,000 rifle. That's not a small amount of money by any, like, objective standard, but, like, for guns, like, That's a relatively mundane type rare-ish rifle. I
And now
started.
you keep saying 30 years. You're a young guy. Do you think you're gonna be dead in only 30 years?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, come on, dude. Give him put more.
Nothing's guaranteed, right? Like, I think, and like, not to be morbid,
Shit.
but like, I lost both of my parents before I turned 30, and so I think frankly, I'm only in this hobby because my dad had a few guns. I didn't own a gun until my dad passed away, and for me, the hobby is sentimental in that, like, I'm preparing a legacy for my own sons, and also I said this on the podcast with MILSURP World. Like, you can get kind of highfalutin or dorky about this, like the carrying of history, like you're just a caretaker for these rifles and their history. But I think that there is a respect issue in that, like, these guns have a lot of history and they saw a lot of suffering. And there's the episode with Iraq veteran 8888 and Matthias from Sea and Arsenal. They talk about like guns and what they mean to individuals and how like evil guns, right? Like Nazi guns or Japanese guns. And in the end, right, like a lot of ways it just represents number one, I think it represents the triumph of America over evil. Right? Like I think that's one reason why I collect Japanese guns is that they are in the country because America stood up and paid lots of sacrifices and blood and treasure to defeat an evil country. And then imported all those guns back here. But the other
Whoa.
thing is that, like, it's interesting to and important to remember and honor the sacrifice of individual soldiers from any country thrust into an awful scenario where, like, your rifle is the last thing of defense keeping you alive so you can go home to your family. I don't know.
That's deep. You
Highfalutin,
you
kinda
you you
dorky,
you kinda put
but
into shame my thought process early on that they all looked cool. Um,
I
they
used it
do
in
look
Call of
cool.
Duty.
and I thought, wow, that Japanese gun looks cool with the dust cover. But yeah, I have since attached a lot of historic emotion and passion to it as well. And when I watch the videos now of our soldiers being shot by all those Japanese rifles, storming beaches and whatnot, it's just like an amazing piece to when I show it. It's not like, look how cool this is. This is what was shooting at us, and we
Yeah.
survived.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
overcame.
watching the documentaries and be like, yep, that could be one of the rifles on my wall right now. I
Yep,
Yeah.
mean, never know, but
I always say it is 100%.
especially when you're
That's right
selling
there,
it.
right there. You see it? That guy right there that has it. Um, I found my 2024 list, and I realized I purchased 4 from Empire Arms, 2 from muskets to machine guns, and 3 at auction. But I checked many boxes. I checked my Polish Mauser box, my standard model, my first banner model rifle. I got a Lithgow shield, that cool shield icon, Lee Enfield #1 Mark III. I wanted an Australian, check. I don't know why it says UK. I finally got a jungle carbine, #5.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
Those are fun. I shot it with our pal Jumbo Shrimp, and he agreed. It's a arm killer. I've finally got a Type 30. I wanted that hook safety ever since I saw it. I was like, that's cool.
Nice, those are nice.
So grabbed that, and I finally got a version of a pre 1900 Mosin Nagant M91. It is obviously finned up like every Mosin you see, but it is an 1899 Sesteresk. I'm saying that exactly right. And then I just added more to my 22s. I probably have like 9 now, maybe 10. I don't know. Gotta double check. But I picked up 2 German 22s and the Moss 45. So I checked a lot of boxes, but as we saw, my Mauser boxes are still too red. I need too many. But if we're going on to 2025, for some reason, I have it in my head. I need to get a Siamese Mauser. I'll settle for a 4666, although as I look more into it, I feel like I need to get a pre-conversion and a post-conversion.
There's a 46 on Gunbroker right now. I'll send you the link.
All right, I probably have it in there. I have like all sorts of resources open, and I'm looking. I'm trying to. I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to. Sometimes they think they're gold and they're going for 950. No thanks.
Oh, yeah, don't no.
Yeah, I know,
I,
but they're in the 4 to
have
6 range all day.
yeah, even cheaper than that. a Siamese Mauser was one gun that stuck in my craw because I passed up one at a gun show. I decided to do one extra loop around the show before buying it, and of course somebody bought it.
No.
It was like 225, I think.
Wow, great.
And
Broke one of the
then,
golden rules.
Yep.
yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
they're so
And it's just
interesting for
like
so many reasons, dude. You should have grabbed it.
I should have. But then I was patient because, right, I was like, I'm not paying $600, $700, $800 on this, like, because I know that they're cheaper than that. And so it took a year and a couple months, I think, and I got it for 260 out the door at a shop. So
Great.
in the end, right, like tiny amount of money compared to like a lot of other guns. But I was just patient. But yeah, anyway, so you should get one because they're super interesting. Made in Japan
Yeah.
to push back against Western colonialism. Really cool.
And like the mum, I want all the markings on there. I know
Yeah, the
sometimes they're
chakra
not
is like
there.
really cool mark too.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And the other thing I've been looking for still is that PU sniper that I've been looking for a decade. And I'm still willing to accept the fake one. I think there was one just posted. I got to take a look because
Oh,
there's
found out
something
the
about
fake
spending too much
one.
for a Mosin.
There's one on gun boards for like 1,400 with a post-war scope, but it was a legit scope, but it was a post-war scope.
I'll take a
So
look.
There's one local to me for $1,000, but it's a put together one, I think.
And I think, and the last couple of things I have been meaning to pick up just to fill my boxes. I said I'm going to do this year: a wartime Finn M39, a Swiss K11, and I don't know why I don't have one. I love the 31, and I need to get a Martini Enfield for some reason. It's in my head. I have no martinis. I like the lever. I want to get an example of the martini. Why not a 303? So I'm just looking to check off like boxes. All these boxes have been there for years. That PU sniper, like I showed the list. All these were on my initial list, and I still haven't gotten them. So I said, all right, this is the year to bang out some of the early list stuff. And then, of course, what happens is I'll get whatever shows up anyway.
That's what. Yeah, that last thing you said, Tom, was what I was going to talk about next. Holmes, you mentioned something about a list on your phone. Do you actually
Mhm.
have like a racked and stacked, like prioritized list on your phone?
Yes, it's mainly just like the Notes app on my iPhone.
Yeah.
But it is like in order: rifles, pistols, top of the list, down to least
Sort of by what?
priority.
Oh,
Just
by priority?
yeah.
Oh, snap.
So I'm looking at it right now. M1A1 paratrooper carbine, Marine rebuild 1903, a pattern 14 with its original volley sights, a pre-war Moss 36 that's matching, Belgian 1889 long rifle, and then some other few ones, and then yeah, pistols go down the line too as well. But yeah, it's just on my notes app real quick. So like when I do my gun broker searches and everything, I can quickly remind myself, oh, do a quick search for this, see if anything pulls up for that week.
I like how his list was short. You didn't have too many different things on there.
Yeah, I try and keep it to a reasonable level. And like my priorities kind of fluctuate as well, which is kind of how I'm feeling, or maybe I got something and now I'm only one away from having a complete set for something else, or these have been getting more and more expensive, so I want to get one before they get crazy. So the list can fluctuate from year to year, and just depending on what you want or what you need.
And what did you check for this year or past year?
For 2024, I did check a few pretty big boxes. I say I'm a World War One collector, but I didn't have a U.S. handgun for World War One for the longest time, and I finally got that with a Smith & Wesson model 1917.
Yay.
And unfortunately, I also get distracted by a lot of other things. I like modern stuff. I like cowboy stuff. I like kind of retro Cold War stuff. So I like a little bit of everything. So I got some of that sprinkled in there too. That eats up some of my funds, unfortunately. But I do also dabble in World War II. I just want like a solid example of each major belligerent's rifle and pistol. So I did pick up, checked off Germany with a P38, a nice matching one. Checked off English handgun with an Enfield number 2 Mark 1. And then a lot of upgrades last year, which I was pretty happy about. Upgraded my Gewehr 98, upgraded my Carcano, upgraded my Spanish Model 92 French use revolver, and big upgrade to my M95 from Austro-Hungarian. And I did check, at least for now, the trench gun box because I got a Chinese Norinco 1897 and I made a trench gun repro. So it
Hey, I got one too recently.
looks the part and you can shoot it and not worry about it.
Yeah,
And
I'd like
it's
that.
a tenth of the price, so I'll take that.
Yeah, I got a Norinco 97 trench the other day. Same time I got my black powder guns, actually.
Yeah, you got a good deal now.
It was what, like 750 or something like that?
800.
Yeah,
Nice.
that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I wasn't paying any more than that just because I know how much they're worth, and I'm not paying people what they want for since they're not really imported anymore.
Nope. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
paying much for them. They're not worth that much. See what other boxes I check. I got a proper Belgian handgun with actual Belgian markings. Previously, I had an FN 1900 as my Belgian handgun, which I kind of counted because I mean it was probably there in Europe in World War One. It was a commercial one, didn't have
Counts.
any acceptance marks or anything, but now I have a Belgian military marked handgun, so that double checks that box. You do it in red ink now. But I think that's pretty much all the boxes. Oh, I got a Portuguese rifle for World War One. A Kropacek. They would have those because the 6.5 Vigeros are very hard to find in the U.S. So I'll take a Kropacek, however you say it. So I'd say the majority of my purchases were still World War One, either upgrades or checking some of those outlying boxes with some modern silliness mixed in.
I noticed nobody mentioned South America in anything from lists to beginning to end to future to past.
You're too soon. I was just about to get to my 2025 goals,
Oh
and
shit!
that included
Uh-oh.
getting something in 7 mil because I don't have a 7 millimeter.
You should
And
get a Mondragon.
oh
There
yeah,
we go.
let me go on
There
Texas
you
Gun
go.
Trader real quick. Let me go on Gunbroker
Um,
and find one.
I mean,
I
just go to Mexico. They got a few in the museums there and there.
True.
But isn't it crazy that they get so little love? I don't know. They had a lot of wars. They had a lot of inner fighting. The guns were used.
Yeah, it's just history never really affected the U.S. that much. I know we got involved in some of that stuff a little bit,
I guess
but
that's it. Selfish U.S.
I think it's just right, like that area of the world's history is not well studied or taught in the US. And that just diminishes the desirability. I got to go to Colombia a couple of times for work, and we stopped there on a port call on a deployment. And I really want to get a Colombian Mauser. Um, That's on my, like, long-term list. I think it's, like,
Right.
pretty low priority. The few that I've seen a couple in person, but they were, like, really ratty, and I was like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not paying, like, 4 or $500 for, like, an RTI level gun." So one day I'll get one of those, but I like the thought of, like, buying a gun because you visited the country. Like, that's kind of a fun collecting thing.
Right.
And I suppose that gets into the, like, distraction type level of collecting where it's just like, "Yeah, why not?" Right? Like, it's fun. It reminds me of good times that I experienced in the country, and it's not exactly what I am focused on, but that's okay too, right? I think fun is hopefully, right? Like fun is the point that all of us do this for. So I've
Right.
got Colombian guns on there, but that's just because I got to
And
visit.
but when you do
Love
the research on it too, like I was looking at the South American wars, and like there's one, the Thousand Days War was in Colombia, and it
Yeah.
was a 100,000 dead or something like that. So like there's some huge wars, the Chaco War, Bolivia, something 100,000 dead. Like there's so many interconflicts that thousands and thousands killed. I guess it's kind of sad down there, but yeah, I think Kelly summed it up with it didn't affect the Americans enough.
yeah,
But the Brazilians did help in World War II. They were the
they did.
only South American country to help.
I feel like there was one that was in World War One, but I can't remember.
Oh, I meant in World War II they were the only one.
Yeah,
But
they technically sent people over, and I think they like launched some artillery, and that was pretty much it.
all right,
I think Colombia was part of the UN deployment to South Korea to fight the North Koreans during the Korean conflict.
Whoa,
there's that.
that is
Um,
cool.
That'd be a cool one.
my list, I'm looking same thing as Holmes. I've got a Apple iPhone note page that I keep like my collecting stuff on. And I've got my list broken down in a few different categories by like collections. So I've got my Japanese lists and then my Finnish list and my Italian front list. Oh, and then I guess I have a random list too, which has. I was talking to the group about this that like Cold War pistols, like $250 to $300 type Cold War pistols, I think are fun. It started from that $210 Tokarev, right? Like not at all within my collecting field, but like you can waste $200 on Chick-fil-A in a month. You know what I mean? Like, and so um, eventually, I think I'd like to get some of those. But the things that I like actually am focused on, I've got mostly my Japanese list is way longer than either Finnish or Italian front, and it's broken down by price. So I've got the ultra expensive, and that's quote more than 2K. And that's got like the standard stuff, right? Type 35, Baby Nambu, a Colt 1903, Smith and Wesson 44 Russian, Type 2, Mauser 1934 with the holster and bring back papers, things like that.
Wow.
And
Wait,
then
Colt 1903 is that expensive? Wow.
Because yeah, I mean, right, like you can get super lucky and luck into one and get cult paperwork that proves the provenance. But usually, right, you're doing it the opposite way, where somebody is selling it because they have the cult letter that proves that it was sent to Japan.
Right.
And so, right, on Gunbroker, and frankly, that's probably a little bit more the ones on Gunbroker, there's been several that have just been sitting there for a year at $2,000. The condition's decent. Um, so if you're willing to spend 2K on it, you can just drop it and get a buy it now. But yeah, long term, I think that'd be fun. I like the Japanese used foreign pistols, like the private purchase ones that you can actually prove went there. Like
Right.
my FN 1910 has a kanji on it, because there's a lot of unscrupulous sellers over the last decades that have just like slapped it together with a holster and said that it was Japanese used. But if you Anthony Vanderlinden did a bunch of work on the forums and unfortunately like told a ton of people that their pistol was not actually sent to Japan because he went into the archives and learned that their serial was not in the shipped contract. So anyway,
I
um,
like a simple mark like that, like a nice kanji mark where you go, all right, there, I could tell. I don't need to run serial numbers.
exactly. Unfortunately, because it's just one kanji, the kanji is faked too.
Oh, come on.
So you have to, yeah, yeah. So you have to do some research, and you can get an archival letter that, or you used to be able to, that proves your provenance. So I have an archival letter from FN that proves my pistol was shipped to Japan. And so my kanji mark is
Sweet.
correct. Anyway, but so like I've got mine broken down by price, like the current market price. Um, and mostly the things on here, like if I'm looking at like under 1,000, I've got Okura mid type 99, last ditch 99, 94 that's matching for under 1,000. And right, like I list out like what the current market price is. So I go in and update that on occasion.
Roll poll.
Yeah, um I tend to make my purchases not necessarily, at least I have in the past, not necessarily on prioritization, but just like what I've run into. So, right, probably my favorite aspect of the hobby is going to a gun show. I love gun shows. Like it's just so fun. And I would say that like my shows aren't even like amazing around me. Like they're kind of mid
Well,
level.
you like just looking at the stuff? Or are you
Yeah.
interacting with all the
Yeah, I'm the
vendors? Are
same
you
way.
that guy?
No, I've told my wife before that like I wish gun shows were run by robots. Because it's not the people that I want to talk to, because all the people just waste your so much of your time, right? Like it
It's
like
always wrong information.
Right.
I'm one of those introverted people and I'm from the Midwest. And so like politeness to strangers is like a really key factor. And so it's difficult for me to break off of a conversation from someone that's just like yabbering at you and you are positive you don't want to buy anything from them. You looked at their gun and like you saw the price and it's like, oh, we're never going to get to a deal. You're way too overpriced. But then they like see you and they want to talk to you. And so it's like, it's hard for me to say like, hey, thanks so much. Like, I gotta go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to keep looking around the show. So it's not the people, because I like making like actual substantive connections, like we've got in our Discord group or with you guys, or like gun boards, right? Even like some people on there. For me, it's the like the hunt. Like I love walking first thing in the morning. Show opens at 9, and you're waiting outside the door with your coffee, and like it's cold outside, and you're ready to just like zip in and check out all the inventory, and you might find something incredible. That's how I got my Type
Right.
35 02 45. Um, it was just a guy at a show, and he knew it was a Type 35, and he sold it to me for $750, and like it's worth probably about 2,000. Right? Like the money aspect's fun too, right? Like it's just fun to like I just bought something worth, $1,200 more than what I paid for it. And then just like the thrill of the hunt is the good piece there for me.
Right, yeah, I get in a zone sometimes where I forget that the vendors are there as I'm, like, like, the case you show is so big, I have to, like, put it in my mind where everything is that I'm looking at
Mm.
for later.
And I've never been to one of those shows. I'm really excited, and I don't think it's gonna happen, unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna happen in 24, or excuse me, in 2025.
Boo.
Um, we're, uh, we're hoping to take a vacation down to Florida, and go to Disney World for the kids, but then also at the same time, I've got family there I'm excited to visit. And then, lastly, there's a Japanese sword show. So that's one of my goals for 2025 is I'd like to get a Japanese, Shingunto, an army sword, to go with my Kaiganto. Um,
And is that what that's just Army, Navy?
so
I
Shingunto
got one
means
smaller, the Shingento's smaller too, I think.
Shingunto means it means new sword. It means new military sword. So it's an overarching category. Kaigunto is the Japanese Navy swords. So what I'm probably looking for is either a Type 94 or a Type 98 type Japanese Army sword. And the style is like slightly different. The Type 98's a little bit more practical, but they're both the kind of like traditional, like when you close your eyes and you think like World War II samurai sword, like that's what they are.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool looking. But that's
yeah,
another
so
rabbit hole I climbed down, and then I climbed the fuck right
oh
out. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"Nope."
I love swords, like Japanese swords. Is an incredibly fun hobby, but I think there's not a lot of necessarily a lot of overlap between milsurps. Because it's an intense academic thing and you have to have like kind of a little bit of language skill and ability, or like the ability to want to learn it, because the jargon is all in Japanese, and there's probably I don't even know how many hundreds of terms for swordsmiths and the way swords are and the pieces of swords and whatnot. It's
Yep.
really, really, really cool hobby. Um,
And I saw the intricacies of, like, the flower, if it
yep.
had a certain thing around the outside of it, it meant something else. If it had a certain color, it meant something else. It was wow, it was so deep. And the ribbon that was on it, if the color mattered and the style mattered, and
Yeah, yeah, and
oh,
that's just like
it's
gunto,
nuts.
like military swords too.
So good
Like
luck with that.
um, if you
So it looks hard.
if you expand out to Nihonto, like traditional Japanese swords, like the variation and the beauty of it is just like it's just astounding. But very, very nuanced and crazy expensive too, right? Like it is very, very, very common to get relatively run-of-the-mill swords for $10,000, right? Like it's one of those hobbies
Wow.
that you can get decent swords for cheaper, but um like I've been to a Japanese sword show before, and there were multiple $100,000 plus swords just like hanging out.
Oof.
Like that's just like
Wow.
it's just a different money game. Um
Yep.
so anyway,
But yeah,
if you like
100,000 is
swords,
insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you like swords, the forum online, the Nihonto message board is really, really, really well run. That's a great community to get involved with if you're looking for a like MILSURP adjacent type hobby. Like I love it. So anyway, 2025 saving for a light machine gun, saving for a Japanese army type 94 or 98 type sword. And then that's my first like I don't know, probably 8 months of the year, and then we'll see what the last four bring for me. And that's what
Oh
I'm excited
shit!
about.
And do people, even Japanese collectors, purchase the trainer rifles? I'm curious. Who buys
Um,
those?
yeah, that's a good question. Some people do because they're so dang cheap, right? Like
It's like a
it's
trick.
the thing, like I said, right? Like it's like $200. Some of them are cheaper than that, even. Like pretty hard to like
It-
sniff at like a gun
but it
that cheap.
fails the shootable prior,
Yeah,
requirement.
I swear I've seen
I
like one guy out there that specifically collects those.
yeah, I think personally, I think they're pretty boring. The only
There's
one
so
I've
many for
bought
sale.
Yeah. The only one I've bought was the Type 30 trainer, because it was the first Type 30 I saw in person. It was $185 and they only made 10,000 of them. And I was like, well, that's a good representative example, and it's relatively uncommon, and it's 185 bucks. Like, I can buy a trainer. But I have not been tempted by buying other trainers because it's just for me, it's like I've thought about it like for my kids, but I also like it's tough in that it's not a toy, you know what I mean? Like, that kinda gets towards the like, there's a weird level
Right.
on, like, kids soldiering, you know what I mean? Like, we all played soldier as boys, but I don't necessarily want to have them start looking like, Hitler Youth, right? Or, like, even right, like, maybe this will be controversial, but, like, what's the junior ROTC where it's, like, middle school
Oh,
ROTC?
Rotzi, yeah.
Yeah, because like ROTC is like college, and that's obviously I think that's totally acceptable. But there's like middle school, then there's high school ones, and then there's middle school ones. And I've passed a formation of folks marching in the same uniform that I'm wearing. And it's like, oh, I feel a little uncomfortable seeing middle schoolers in uniform in the same uniform I'm wearing. Right? Like that gets a little too close to like toy soldier
Yeah.
aspect. Right? Like who knows? Maybe my kids will do that someday and I'll totally change my opinion. And if you're listening to this and you do it or your kids do it, like more power to you. I have not studied it enough to know if it's
Well, any little kid trying to
prevalent.
lug around a Type 30 training rifle is going to look ridiculous anyway.
Right, right.
It's
That's why
gigantic.
they need Bahias, or however you say them.
There
Bahias.
you go. The Italians had the right idea. Little training guys.
Oh yeah, yeah, Holmes, you've got like several of those Italian Belias.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're pretty cool.
I got three.
Yeah. I like one of the aspects of those I like is that they have the plaques of Italian soldiers killed in World War One, and it's like, hey, this rifle, this training rifle, toy rifle, is presented in honor of this soldier who
Yeah,
died in World War One.
yeah, I got
Obviously, right? Like
Yep.
you got some fascist overtones there, but like I think that's as somebody who collects Italian World War One, I think that's a cool concept.
yeah. It's not every single one of them had that, and all the plaques were it was very unique. Each one's unique in the sense of the plaques are different, names
Mhm.
obviously. But yeah, I have one that has a rack number on a metal plate, and then I have another one that has an actual soldier's name on a metal plate, and then the other one's just blank. It doesn't have anything. Um, and they're all very niche little part of collecting that not a lot of people do. The people who do know about them think they're crypto, like Bitcoin worthy of money, but they're really not. I think I paid less than 300 for each of mine at auction. When you can find a few that have been sold in the past, as well as some that are currently trying to be sold for 1,000 plus, and it's just like
Yep. I've seen that.
they ain't worth that. Like I know exactly how much they're worth and how much they're selling for, and people are just shooting for the moon. Um, but yeah,
Well,
they're just fun
some
little.
have good crests though. There are
Yeah, they
some
do.
good, cool
Yeah,
ones.
I do have one that's like a very, very, very nice condition, very clear crest, cartouches, and all that. And the other two, I think one of them is just has a janky bolt, the other one has a janky bayonet, and they're all made out of cast pot metal, bronze. and they're all different too. So literally, the companies that made them, they weren't off the assembly line interchangeable. Like each one legitimately is unique. Rear sights, shape of the stock, shape of the magazine,
That's weird.
bolt handle, uh, bayonet, barrel. They're all just like any last ditch, like Japanese stuff, like the trainers on those,
And
and
I think I've seen different sizes, like real small and a little,
they're
medium size.
generally all about the same size. There are a few that are legitimately toys. The Balilas are more so blank firing
Oh, maybe that's for
trainers
the
for
toys.
kids, but they also made legitimately toys that are Paris Dunn 1903 esque, but like super small cap guns.
Ha.
Like you think they would have like an orange tip on them, kind of thing.
And I meant to ask this before. Do you guys? What's your opinion on the neutral countries? Is it case by case basis based on the history, or
I cared about
fuck
them,
them?
or I cared about them early on in the sense of like when I was first collecting, I just wanted to gobble everything up that I could, and then I slowly realized that I just don't care. Kind of like South America, I just don't care. Um, so I sold those off and got rid of all those neutral stuff because to me the history it's history, it's cool, but it's not the history that I'm interested in and want to learn and grow on.
If the Swiss had a regular bolt action, I probably wouldn't have been as interested. But that Swiss, Schmidt Rubin straight pull was something I was interested in. So they suckered me in.
Yeah, I do go for them for World War One just because I want to have like an example of what every country had at the time, and luckily enough, all of the neutral countries in Europe, they all kind of had something interesting and unique at least. Like the Swiss had
Yeah,
the G11, which is the straight pull long rifle, which is stupid long. The Dutch had their weird Mannlichers. The Swedes had such a nice rifle that you just got to have a Swedish Mauser.
and you
Plus,
shoot for the year that the war years though, right?
well, my Swedish is in 1907, so pre-war, but same thing. And then my let's see, my 9611 is a pre-war also. It's a 1900, but my Dutch is wartime. And then eventually I'll need like a Norwegian. Well, Norwegian and what else? Danish. I'll need those as
Couple of
well
crags.
because those are both unique and interesting as well. And I really like to I shoot a lot, so like obviously I like the Swiss to take shooting and the Swedes to take shooting. So those are both part of or those are have a place in my collection. That's actually part of my goal for 2025 is some of the neutral handguns because I don't have any neutral handguns. So like a Swiss 1887 revolver, maybe a Swedish Husqvarna M1907 because those are also kind of cool and unique, and it's a different caliber that I don't have just for shits and gigs. Maybe a
Wow.
Dutch Hembrug
I'm
9.4 revolver.
I don't know the neutral pistols as well. They don't get the love.
I would say I'm kind of in the middle between you two guys. So I got a Swedish M38, the like mid-length rifle, when my first son was born. That was kind of a present to me. My wife got like a beautiful like birthstone ring. Um, and I didn't know any better. This was like 3 months after I started collecting. And so it's been bubbaed. I haven't like taken it apart to determine it, but I think it's got like a hair trigger that somebody filed down, and then for sure the stock has been sanded. So it's got some problems to it. So that's the first one I got, but it like shoots great. It's really pretty nice gun. And so then when my second son was born, I got a Swedish M96, the long rifle. This one was SA stamped, so it fit my Finnish collection. So I'm actually like, I really enjoy that one, and that one's like part of my collection. And then I found a Jungmann this past year. That was another good pickup in 2024.
Oh,
And it was
nice.
only $1,200. And normally that's like a roughly $1,600 gun. And so I was like, well, it's really interesting. I have two other ones. Like I have the two other main rifles. Like it's $400 cheaper than it should be. Why not? Right. Like, so I got that and really enjoy that one. But like those are probably all the Swedish guns I'm gonna
The
need.
rule of buying MILSURP. think of one
Yeah.
reason why you should, and now you go ahead with it.
Yeah, so
Got to
true.
justify it.
Yep.
And then Swiss guns, I don't own any Swiss guns, but every single year I've told myself, like, this is the year. Like, I get up towards the holidays and Simpson runs a sale on some of their stuff, or Edelweiss. Edelweiss is actually in my town that I live in. And so like I'm always tempted. They don't have a physical store, but they're just like I see them sometimes when I'm driving past. Um, and I'm always like, this is the year I'm gonna get a Swiss, either a 1911 long rifle or K11 or a K31, because I think the history is interesting, right? Like Switzerland's ability to balance all the different factors and remain independent and neutral, is in and of itself like pretty cool history. And so I'd like
They,
maybe
they were
one,
mobilized,
yeah,
defending their property,
yeah, like, it's pretty cool, and right,
trained.
like, there's a lot of interaction, right? Like, they were the neutral government that oversaw whether or not POWs were being humanely treated. A really cool history. Um, one subset of World War II history that I, like, am fascinated with is POW escapes, like, out of, like, Colditz Castle in Europe, and, like, they all make for Switzerland, and it's, like, really cool, like, there's several memoirs where they have this, like, celebratory moment with Swiss border guards, where they're, like, dancing in the snow with this, Swiss man who has no idea what they're saying, but it's because they made it, right? Like, they escaped the Nazis and got all the way to the right border, and anyway, it's cool to think of like that moment happening and people carrying K31s. And I got a couple of books about Switzerland in World War II that I've been meaning to read. And I think like once I get around to actually reading those, I'll probably end up buying at least one Swiss rifle. But again, super, super low on the priority list. In part, I think because they're so available, right? Like when you can actively go on
Right.
to Simpson and pick out one of 100 or 200 different Swiss rifles, it makes it not necessarily quite as special.
I've got my Simpson K11 tabs open now, actually.
Yep, that's exactly what I did. And just like, oh yeah, I'll pick one out. They're still cheap.
Yeah, and like you guys said, like what the other countries had at the time of the war. So I'm looking at like the K11's 1914 to 18 range, just to be consistent, and then the K31 something in the 40s or something is what I got. Forgot what it was, 42. But I do like that thought because like Netherlands, or I guess weren't they neutral?
Yes. Yep.
But those Dutch rifles
And
are, I love those.
Yeah, they're so
and
wacky.
World War One, yes, yeah,
And
not World War II.
Portugal was mostly neutral.
Yeah,
But the
kind of
check
neutral,
is
kind of
so
fun.
was so interesting. I had to get that, and same thing with the
Exactly.
Vergaro. I got tricked twice. They're so
Yeah,
good though.
yeah, that's why I like them. I just find them like mechanically interesting, and they're like different designs, and a lot of them shoot really nice. So might as well.
Sucker for it. All right, so is that everyone's goals for the future?
I guess I didn't do my other goals for my World War One collection. I'm kind of at a crossroads because I don't
Uh-oh.
have any major holes now, and everything else past this is kind of expensive. So like
1911.
1911 C96 real trench gun, which
Wait,
is
whoa! No
You heard
1911?
you heard that
I have,
correctly.
I have a World War
Oh,
Two
Kelly.
1911.
Okay, all right.
But he's a World War One collector.
Oh,
But I,
Kelly.
but I have U.S. handgun, so it still counts.
Sell some of that modern stuff. Sell that modern crap. Get a 1911.
No 1911. He has an MP5.
But
So
the MP5
Yeah,
is so fun.
yeah, you can't slap a 1911.
You can't.
you
So
can.
that's kind of I'm kind of debating for what I want to do in 2025. Do I want to continue with World War One or do some little side action type things? Right now, I'm staring at the screen. I'm looking at a Schofield revolver repro because I like cowboy guns as well, and I don't have a Schofield yet. And shooting my Colt single action army clone it's like my favorite handgun to shoot. Period. I love shooting that thing. So thinking
And,
about this as a birthday present to myself.
and this is a dumb question, but the CMP, there's no distinction between if you get a World War One or World War Two in
Nope,
any of the
you
things.
you get what you get, and I got lucky with mine. So I'm happy with my 1911 for now. Obviously, I got to get a World War one at some point, but 1911 box is checked enough.
It's close enough.
It's partially checked for now.
Like my Belgian 8916 counts for an 89 Belgian.
Yeah, same.
For now.
But I also really enjoyed in 2024 and 2023, especially getting like a lot of the World War One 32 pistols because they're also funky and weird. So I think I might also do keep going for some of that for World War One this year. I really want a Frommer because it's a freaking long recoil action 32, which is silly, or I get it in 38, and gotta get an
Those are
F in
cool.
1910 just because like the history of World War One kind of starts with a shot from that gun.
How many like mass-produced 32s estimated do you think there are that you don't have?
That I don't have? What? Mass produced? Probably at least 8 or 9.
Like a decent amount. Oh, what? Wow.
Yeah. I have like 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. There's probably 8 or 9 or 10 more.
There's just so many of them, though.
That sounds like a lot. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and thanks to Germany using most of them.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the rabbit holes I've been going down the last 2-3 years is World War One 32s or pocket pistols, but my stickler for them is they all need to be like military or unit marked. So, so like Imperial marked for German ones because you can. I mean, there's plenty that I could find a Walther Model 4 that's not Imperial marked. I could find those all day easily, but the Imperial marked ones or a unit marked one, which I had 2 of them at one point, that's what I'm looking for.
Wait, if it's not Imperial marked, it's not. It's a regular commercial.
Technically, yes, but
or another country or something.
There's always the private purchase part, like officer purchase or whatever it is. But the Imperial mark or the military acceptance mark obviously shows this pistol was meant for military use versus a commercial one that was sold as a private purchase that you can't verify the history on. Wow. So like all my German 32s, World War One pocket pistols, they're all Imperial marked, or the Austrian ones, or other countries during that time frame. That's just like my stickler thing for them because there's plenty of guns that I could have gotten that were commercial ones that fit the bill that were that model, but at the same time, it's just to me, it could be a military issued one, or it could be just someone bought it at some point and had it during the war or private purchase, and I just try and go for the military part of it.
So that comes back to that patience from before.
Yeah.
A lot of people jump and go, you know what, fuck it, I'll upgrade later on, and then they sitting on it, and you have fucking patience.
The Frommer and the Model 4 and the Walther Model 4 were the 2 big ones that eluded me for a while, and I picked both of those up early 2024 from the Jan Still collection, and both of them were in his book, pictured and both unit marked for military acceptance and unit acceptance and everything. So those I kind of hit a home run on those, but paid a little bit more for them, but they fit the bill for what I wanted versus a run of the mill one that doesn't have a military acceptance that I could have bought. I can, for every 20 of those I see one that's military kind of thing.
Yeah. A lot of them are pretty easy to find military, like Mauser 1914s and stuff like that. So why buy a commercial one when you could get a military one just as easily? Mm-hmm.
You know, it looks like we've seen that we all have our own things we're very specific about and have OCD about, and it's interesting. You know, we all have different collection styles, you know, with the World War One, II, and Japanese rifles, but we are kind of obsessed, I guess it comes down to.
That's what makes every collection unique. Unless you just go buy all the cheap guns, that's not unique.
Yeah, you're an accumulator, not a collector.
Well, that's how I started. I started by going.
We all kind of started that way. Yeah,
I'm gonna just keep going and get one, and then I was like, wait a minute, I can get a real nice one of those.
That's why I always harp on to like newbie collectors, usually on Reddit, of course. It's like find your niche, find what actually interests you. Don't just buy stuff for the sake of buying stuff.
Right.
Patience.
All right. Do we have any more of our future endeavors? I'm just looking for that junk I mentioned before. I'm filling up I'm closing loose ends, I'll say.
I might also crack and get a G3. I like Cold War stuff, and G3s are cheap right now. Weirdly, like they're built on Portuguese G3 parts kits, but they're made by PTR, and they're like $850, which is pretty cheap for one. And I like Semi-Auto 308. It's fun, so I might crack and get one of
That
those
is
too.
cool.
Been talking to Frantical Mon too much.
Yeah, he actually told me about. 'em. I'm like, shit, you should have told me about these.
Holmes, why wouldn't the Korean War also do it for you? Out of curiosity.
Because it was the same guns as World War II.
Well, there's a couple different.
I mean,
throw
not
an
really.
You can throw the SKS in. No, actually, no. Too late for the.
Yeah,
Too early for the SKS.
and are you into AKs, or is that
No.
also beyond the time?
Beyond
Wow.
the time.
Yeah, see, that's
I've owned one in the past, but I've sold it for a lot more than I paid, and it was great, and it was cool while I had it, but just didn't
Wow.
fit the bill for me.
Yeah, that's what sucks about me. I like everything: cowboy guns, AKs,
Yeah, I hate that.
modern stuff.
I wish I was like them, a little more focused.
Yeah, I get distracted easily.
The history piece is so fun. I did a lot of battlefield exploration for the Civil War in 2024 and have a bunch of trips planned to do so locally in 2025. And as a result, like have been thinking about Civil War guns. Um,
Uh-oh.
in 2024, I picked up a Pieta Colt 1851 replica. It was like $120. I was like, yeah, why not? Like
Sure.
super cool. Seeing Arsenal's repercussion episodes didn't help that. Same thing on read I don't remember the author, but it's called The Gun, and it's about the development of the AK-47. Really good book. But yeah, at some point, like I want to get like $600 Palmetto State Armory AK and just have it as like a fun range toy, and just because like it's such a quintessential gun, or like an AR-15. Like I don't own an AR and haven't ever.
Whoa.
Like at some point, I want to get like an M4 um, clone put together because I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. Shoot. Wow.
Too many
Well,
guns.
there's
Yeah.
too many
Whenever
guns, too little time, too little money.
So
Money.
true. Whenever I kind of gets back to the patience piece, whenever I'm like lamenting to my wife, like, oh, this gun is so cool and I want to buy it, but I don't have the money, or I'm like, I'm saving. She just tells me like there's always going to be another gun, Michael. So to everybody
And
who's
that's true.
tempted by all the deals and the like have to get it now and the like YOLO, there's always going to be another gun.
And here's another tip. Don't watch it. Once you decide you're not buying it,
Yes.
close the tab and forget it. And so you're not later on going to bed going, why didn't I just buy it? It was so I could have just had it. Yeah. So the sooner you forget it, then the better you'll be.
And stop looking. if
Right.
your eyes aren't on stuff, deals can't pop up.
That's
Right.
true.
Usually.
Unless your friends, they're weasels and they send them to you.
Send you stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
But if you want to sell anything, email me and I'll connect you with people. Give me first dibs. All right. I think we yapped enough about all our wonderful pickups and future plans and boxes we checked. And I think we made it clear like that sporterized guns are terrible and you have to be able to shoot a gun to collect it. So those are the two rules we'll take away.
Yeah. Just want to be clear though. Not necessarily not shootable for guns to collect them, just safety in a sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Because there's plenty of guns that I have that I will not shoot due to collectability.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The ability they
Functional, at least.
they can be they are functional enough to be
Yeah.
fired, but you don't have to do it and screw it
Yeah,
up.
we see the Reddit rants of people saying that if you don't shoot it, then why buy it, kind of thing. It's like, well, I buy it because it's collectible, not because, and it's historical, not because I need to go shoot it.
Yeah, once you get to a certain point, you have plenty to shoot. You kind of grow out of that.
Right. That's definitely people on the outside looking in because like Michael was getting with his passion, all the guns you start picking up, that's the tied to this unit that did this and that's was in this war it's all the story more than it is shooting and making things go boom.
Particularly
So
if
many
you
people
have
think.
particularly if you have multiple copies of the same platform, right? Like if you've got a bunch of 99s and you got one that doesn't match, right? That's why people have like, this is my shooter Luger, right? Like it's not going to break your heart if the firing pin breaks, you know?
Right. And I was thinking about the pattern collectors and like think of the joy Conrad must have found like 70 Type 99s in when he found another one he didn't have.
You're right. Yeah.
You know? After a while, he had to be like, "Oh my god, I'm never gonna find. Oh wow, I got another one."
Again, we all have a sickness.
Yeah, the dopamine, the chase, but don't chase too much. You gotta. I'm learning from you guys. Maybe that's my goal for 2025. I'll be more patient,
Good goal.
and I'll get a real PU sniper for a decent price instead of
That's
rushing to get
yeah,
a fake one.
I agree. Do that.
All right,
Sell
that's my
something else.
goal.
Sell your least prioritized couple guns and then get a real one. You'll be happier because the
All right,
history's real.
all right, that's my goal, and that'll be my goal in 2026 as well, maybe. So we'll see. Shit.
Like it. Long-term planning. It's good.
All right, guys. I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your stories and opinions and pickups and discussing your goals. Thank you so much, Michaels.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
thanks.
having us.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was great. Really enjoyed catching up with you guys.
Yeah,
Definitely.
really
Yep.
like y'all's perspectives. Good conversation for sure.
Yeah, I always like just talking MILSURP. We don't get to do it that much, except a couple of drunken Friday nights. But all right, that's it. So check out the YouTube. We'll probably put something on there. Patreon and YouTube Shorts. Kelly, I think, has that MP5 on there.
Oh yeah.
And thank everyone. There'll be outro music playing right here. And thank you.
In the halls of time, collectors roam, historians of steel and stone. The tales of Mauser and Mosin told. Freedom's fight never grows old. Preserve the brave in the grand parade. Soldiers' courage can never fade. Echoes of valor in every piece. A heritage of hope and peace. Collectors are historians, guardians of hearts and hands. In relics of freedom stands, in the echoes of this land. From shadows long the stories rise. In every blade the spirit flies. With every rust and mark and scar.